Father God, we want to thank you tonight for allowing us to come together. We pray that you would show your blessings upon this meeting, that you would grant us the wisdom and knowledge, guide us in the decisions that we make. We thank you for the opportunity that you've given us to live in a free country. And Lord, I just pray that you would continue to bless America, that we're in troubled times, that we are under attack right here at home among our own people. I pray that you would just draw us all together and that we could live as one and serving one. Thank you for all the things that you've done for us. Thank you more than anything for your son Jesus that paid the ultimate sacrifice for all of us. We ask that you would be with us as we go into this Christmas season, that we never forget what the season is really about. Also, I ask that you would bless those and take good care of them as they travel to be with family, loved ones, get them there safely and return them back home safely. Especially, Lord, that you would be with our students as they're out during the Christmas break, that you would keep them safe and return them back to their schools. Good health. Once again, we thank you for your son, Jesus, and in his name I pray. Amen.
Amen.
At this time, I'd like to call the meeting of the Wilson County Board of Education to order. Dr. Wright, we have a special presentation, I believe, from some of our students.
W.A. Wright, students. Back to them. Here we have two really special presentations tonight. W.A. Elementary choral group will be singing, and then we have a special guest, as far as Corinne Burnett from Elsie Patton, that will be singing the national anthem and Proud to be an American. So, for that.
All right. At this time, I'd like to ask Don Withers to
Get that one in particular, he's my grandson. Go.
Can you get by?
Yeah, I'm on it.
The United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Winter sky, blowing the snow around me, falling down, far as the eye can see,
you introduce them for us, please?
Yes, I'd love to. I
And
didn't
they're
know if I
great.
could.
What grade they're in?
Okay, Alex Frost, Micah Morgan, Emily Aldrich, Coco Turner, Brianna Sutton, Alexia Page, Reagan Frost, hang on, Ryder Loftus, Tyler Coon, Rebby Ronaldo, and Sandra McAfee. And they're third, fourth, and fifth grade.
In your name,
My name's Kathy Russ.
music teacher extraordinaire.
Can I go in front? Yeah, go.
Thank you so much. And next, our special guest, Corinne, Elsie Patton. And as she's walking up here, on Veterans Day, when we were having programs all over the district, and there was a young lady that came to the front, and she was going to sing Proud to Be an American. And it was one that, and where was I? She was there. If you closed your eyes, you would have thought you were listening to something much older, more mature. And it was the idea that we had this fifth grader that had this voice of an angel. So I asked her if she would come tonight and share her talent with everyone. And I was very greedy because I said, "Can you sing too?" And she threw this.
Can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleam, whose breast and bright star from Detroit down to Houston, from New York to LA. There's pride in every American heart, and it's time we stand and say, I'm proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm free. And I won't forget the man who died, who gave that right to me. And I'd gladly stand up next to you and defend her still today. 'Cause there ain't no doubt I love these lands. God bless the USA. I'm proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm free. And I won't forget the man who died, who gave that right to me. And I'd gladly stand up next to you and defend her still today. 'Cause there ain't no doubt I love these lands. God bless the USA.
Remember this young lady, the boys, whatever, we will hear from her again. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, there's a lot of people that question and say things about what's wrong with our kids. Well, I tell you, that's what's right with our kids right there. There's some good things going on.
I'd just like to say I'm proud to be a school board member and involved with all the good things that are happening in our school system too. And that's what makes me so special. Thank you.
Okay, statement of citizens against delegation, Wendell, Marlowe. Wendell, I know you're part of here, but I gotta read this to you anyway. Please state your name, address, and subject of your presentation. Your topic must be specific in nature, dealing only with policies and procedures. We reserve the right to terminate remarks at any time that you fail to hear the guidelines or that your comments become abusive to an individual board member of the board as a whole. The director of schools or an employee of the school system, the board shall have no obligation to respond. At the conclusion of your remarks, the board as director of schools shall have the privilege to ask questions. Your remarks will be limited to 5 minutes, with the board secretary keeping a time. If you have to ask the head to speak to the agenda before, you only get 3, but you get 5. All right, go ahead, Wendell.
Before you get started with the time limit, I just want to say, y'all should feel grateful that I'm in here. I'm celebrating my birthday. I'm 50.
I know better.
It's turned 60 today, and on the way to school this morning, I realized that I had been a public school administrator for 1/2 of my life.
Well, congratulations.
Let me, first of all, if pass these in either direction. I kind of hesitate giving you notes before I start, because I know you'll look at them instead of listening to me. But I'm here before you this evening to request a couple of things concerning our sports facilities outside behind the school. We are asking permission to actively pursue and receive donations to construct 2 buildings, a football, baseball press box, and restroom concession stand, and that should say with storage. We're not asking for any funding. I have parents and community members that want to take this task on, but I wanted to get permission for giving them the green light. Also, Bill Morris, I've met with him a couple of times, and he has provided us with some drawings for us to make sure we follow the local rules, guidelines, and codes. I did include one of his drawings on the next to last page, but the rest of them was so tiny that if I shrunk them down, you wouldn't be able to see it anyway. And then the second thing that I'm asking for, even though past directors of schools and administrative personnel have given us permission to construct one of these buildings in the northwest corner of the bus property, I thought it would be best to get an okay from the school board. Permission and promises often get lost when there are leadership changes. So we are asking that a 100 by 100 corner of the northwest corner of the bus property be designated for West Wilson Middle School to use and allow us to go ahead and fence that area. Currently, we have, Mr. Hall has placed 2 large storage containers there for us to use as sports and school storage. So the area is currently being used by West Wilson Middle School, or most of it anyway. But I do have some people that want to get involved in raising funds to build these 2 facilities. We have no restrooms out there. We have no concession stand out there. There's no water for anything. These, as you can tell in the drawing, that the restrooms were built with ADA in mind. Bill Morris made sure of that. But as I said, we're not asking for any funds. I just want to ask permission to pursue the funding and go forward with the program if funding is available. For the very last page, the very last page shows a rough drawing of where the 100 by 100 corner is. It would be right at the corner of our softball field and our football field, where the 2 storage buildings are sitting at this point in time. It would leave that little square above where you see 100 by 100. That's the bus shop dumpster. That's where they sit it, and we wouldn't go. It would not have to be relocated. That black dot over there to the left, that's the first light pole for our softball field. What the fencing would hold is not only the building, but all the electrical panels that feed everything within that area. And those little red dots are the posts that were put up to keep vehicles from hitting the electrical boxes. Questions?
Mr. Chairman, I move we approve this. Second.
Motion by Mr. Withers, second by Mr. McNeese, that we approve the request from the West Wilson Middle School to do a fundraiser to build some concession stands and bathrooms and a football and baseball press box. Any discussion? Being no further discussion, all in favor vote aye. Aye. Let it show that it passed unanimously.
Thank you very much.
Happy birthday.
Thank you. CC's not too bad.
It's better than the alternative, right?
I think our director of schools had a birthday yesterday.
I'm older than Linda.
Well, we won't go there. All right. Christie Dunn. Christie, make your way to the podium, please. Please state your name, address, and the subject of your presentation. Your topic must be specific in nature, dealing only with policies or procedures. We reserve the right to terminate remarks at any time you fail to adhere to the guidelines or that your comments become abusive to an individual board member, the board as a whole, the director of schools, or any employee of the school system. The board shall have no obligation to respond, and at the conclusion of your remarks, the board or the director of schools shall have the privilege to ask questions. Your remarks will be limited to 5 minutes because of the board secretary keeping time. All right, Christie.
My name is Christy Dunn. I reside at 906 Christina Drive, Mount Juliet, Tennessee. I'm here tonight to present a resolution to you asking for a waiver for the school year 2015-16 to not include teacher scores for evaluations for the year 2015-16. Dr. Wright, board members, other administrators, and citizens, I come to you tonight to present to you a resolution in which to ask our Tennessee General Assembly and our State Board of Education for a waiver for the school year 2015-16 for our teachers for this year's Tenn Ready assessment. Knox County passed this resolution last week. Metro, Sumner, Bartlett, Johnson City, Germantown, Hamilton County, and many other boards across the state will be presented with similar resolutions in the next few weeks. While I know our district came out with a new policy last week to allow teachers the best of scores for this year and next year, that simply does not go far enough. This is the first year of the new assessment, an assessment designed for the use of technology that the state does not fund from a technology curriculum through its BDP funding. A technology mandate that has caused multiple issues in the practice portions of the test, during the actual test in high schools, requiring the no use of Wi-Fi so as to not interfere with bandwidth, inequities among schools with technology, differences even amongst laptops, and lack of infrastructure. You have issues with the design of the test itself, such as the small box to type in, no copy and paste features, having to highlight passages, typing so many words per minute, reading lengthy essay passages, and then having to scroll back through to answer one question, no scratch paper for the math portion, very difficult and confusing language, and age-inappropriate material. Starting our testing date for block schedules in high school at the 1st of November and going through December, in addition to finals and AP exams. I would challenge you as board members, central office employees, and even the county commissioners to take the micro-practice test when they come back online in January to see what our children and teachers are facing. A group of 70 highly educated teachers in Memphis recently took it and only one passed. The Tenn Ready questions on this year's assessments have been leased from Utah Sage Test for a price of $2,340,000. We are in contract with them until June 30th, 2017. This begs the question as to how well their tests align with our 10 course standards, and does their pacing sequence align with ours? Of course, we will never know as we're never allowed to see the test questions. Scores are always a controversial subject. Last year we had the infamous quick score cube through gate, in which the Tennessee State Department of Education informed us that quick scores mean nothing but a number for a grade, and the cut scores are determined after the test is already given. Which brings us to the fact that Tenn Ready and TCAP are not comparable assessments. Tenn Ready cut scores will be determined after the assessments are given, and there will be a failing tier no matter how many questions are answered correctly. Recently, the American Educational Research Association released a statement cautioning against the use of value-added models like TVOS for evaluating educators and using such data for high-stakes educational decisions. In Wilson County, half of the teachers do not produce individual TVOS data. The TVOS model was originally designed for the reproduction of cows, not for evaluating educators. It isn't judicious to have their pay and evaluations based on scores from a brand new assessment that is flawed, unproven, and not implemented or fully funded by the state. You as the board have the ability to be the leaders I know that you are, and the power to send the state a strong message of support for our teachers. Thank you.
New board members. Who got it? Alexis?
I'm Alexis Pesdola. I'm from Lebanon High School. You probably heard that. So we have a few things going on for us these past months. A few of our students that we'd like to focus on tonight, a few of our seniors. Connor Rastola was nominated for the U.S. Presidential Scholar. I think it's a scholarship. Only 10 were selected from the state of Tennessee, and nominees were picked on their grades and community service. And we'll find out in February if he's picked as a finalist or a winner. We also want to recognize Alyssa Black as our DAR Good Citizenship Award recipient. Also, our fall play just happened recently. It was in November. We had a great turnout from the audience and a great job by the actors and our theater crew. And if you guys didn't come out, we have our spring musical coming up, and it's going to be Beauty and the Beast. So we want to invite all of you guys to come out and see that performance. It's in April or May, I believe. Our basketball teams are doing amazing. The girls is currently at 4-3, and the boys are undefeated with 5-0. We just beat Mount Juliet High School Friday night. The boys did. Very, very close game. It was a great student section turnout. And this Friday we play at Central. So big games, and if you guys don't have anything to do on Friday nights, we're always welcome to come to Lebanon, or this week we're at Central. So come see us there. State testing is going well, but the varying schedule is kind of making it hard on students and teachers. So we have different schedules every day, most of the time. So if you walk in and it's 7:20 in the morning, we could be in 4th block. So it's different, but we have to be flexible with that state testing schedule. So our students and teachers are doing very well with that. Leadership Wilson, the adult group, came and took tours of our school last week, and we were very impressed with our student council leading the tours. So if any of you guys or anybody from the county is ever wanting to come and take a tour, we have student council members that would love to tour you around our school. We are excited about our first annual semi-formal dance, which was our snowball on December 18th. And students are just very excited that our principal has let us have a dance on campus. It's the first time that it's happened on our new campus, so we're very, very excited about that. And coming up in January, we have our homecoming game against Beach, and our theme we've decided on is Shark Week. So the week of January 15th, if you want to come out and see any of our dress-up days or school spirit, we play the 15th against Beach, and that's our homecoming. So that's all that's going on at Lebanon.
Alexis, was there any truth that the principal of Lebanon High School is helping lead the cheers at the ball game?
He was. Yes.
There was truth to that.
He did lead our roller coaster at halftime. He requested to do that. So
Did he do it well?
He did very well.
That's good.
He did very well. So
I got 2 questions.
yeah.
Has the part of the beauty been cast in your play?
I don't think they've had auditions yet, but if you want
When
to
is the
come,
dance? When is the dance?
the dance is December 18th. It's the last day that we go
Okay.
to school. So
That's good.
that night from 6 to 10. So if you want to come to that, practice for Beauty and the Beast dancing, that's what you need. There you go.
Hey, it was a very exciting ball game.
Both of them were good.
They were.
Hello, I'm Austin Wallace. I'm from Watertown. Do pardon my attire because we had originally planned to wear ugly Christmas sweaters, and Alexis did not go along with it. So, I definitely don't have as much as she did to say, but I guess I can say that November is not an active month for us. I'd like to start off, the end of our football season has arrived, sadly. Even though we've only made it to the first round of the playoffs, we put up a good fight. Basketball season has started, and I'm not very well versed in records on this point in time, but we're winning, so that matters. I'd like to comment on the fact that the 4th and 5th graders are still with us, but we do hope to have them out as soon as possible, because believe it or not, they will get on your nerves eventually.
So get over, welcome out.
I think they like it more than we like it. So, I mean, you can't blame them though. We're pretty amazing. Leadership Wilson, we did recently have tours, and I'd like to, just like Alexis, if any of you are interested in coming to Trick Tour, come first block, because I'll give it to you myself. We did recently have a Governor's Volunteer Stars Award nominee at Deanna of Church that's recognized based on phenomenal, outstanding community service hours. Our BITS program, which that's Be in the Zone, Stay Off Your Phone, it's a safe driving campaign we started in October, and due to some delays, we kicked off our bigger program yesterday, actually, in the Lebanon Christmas Parade. Our winter play just ended last week after 2 or 3 weeks of interesting practices among students. We do have a Christmas concert coming up, and I'm not sure, but the last time I checked, I think it's the 18th. We have recently had some big fundraisers. Our FFA Ag Fruit Sale has been a kickoff. Our highest selling student sold 78 boxes of fruit, which was a big deal. Our March of Dimes fundraiser, which helps premature babies, we recently raised $1,000 exactly, so we will be recognized for that at the FBLA conference in the spring. And along with that, we have seniors that have recently been accepted to colleges, which likely all have. And our scholarship money is now close to $250,000 just for the seniors that have been given money so far. That is all I have to tell you. I'm sure I'll be up here with even more next month, so thank you.
Thank you, Austin.
I'm Jonas H. for Mount Juliet High School. As Austin said, we were planning to wear our Christmas sweaters, but Alexis did flake out. It does have bells. It does have bells. I would have loved to see her. So coming home elections, we're doing lunch last Thursday, and we had a lot of people come up during lunch. I was there during 5th block to take any names that did. I would say about 200 plus people during all the lunches came by. So that was a lot of people just to vote for coming home. So that was a really big turnout. MJ football did unfortunately end in the second round. We lost to Whitehaven pretty bad in Memphis. I'm not going to lie, it wasn't pretty. I mean, the first quarter was tied and then it kind of went downhill. But the student section, because the student section did have a great turnout. About 50 people came. Senior president, class president, Chase Wilson, he actually got a bus for any kid, for any student that wanted to go to Memphis. So we left at like 11, 12, 15, and we drove 7 hours all the way to Memphis because the traffic was very hectic. It was crazy, and we wouldn't even think we'd get it to like halftime. Unfortunately, we did get to it the second quarter. I was fortunate to go. It was a real blast. A lot of people came and showed their pride. Basketball season began. Both boys and girls teams are doing well. As you heard, the boys team put up a really good fight against Lebanon. They did lose, and I will give credit that that student section crowd was really amazing with the principal, was it? It was really cool. The girls did win, and they've been playing pretty well. For Interact Club, we've had a lot of events that we've done during the parade. Last Saturday, we helped with that. We set up and tore down after before and after the parade, so that was really fun to do. We also have now had the opportunity to help LZ Patton Elementary School kids with tutoring. So whatever subject they need help with before school, we go out there and we help them with whatever they need. So it's really cool for us to help the kids there. There's going to be big events for each class for student council. From freshman to senior grade, we're each going to have a big community project coming up. And it's going to be from whatever idea they come up with. It was supposed to happen during these next couple of weeks, so probably next board meeting I'll get to you there on what happened there. And that's all I have.
Thank you for your report. Simone Anthony, the student board member from Wilson Central, had something else that she had to do tonight, school-related activity, so she couldn't be here tonight. But we'd like to congratulations to Coach Brad Dedman and his staff at the football team. I think they made it to the quarterfinals of the state playoffs and got beat in a very interesting game down in Memphis, from what I understand. Also, I think The girls' basketball team at Central may be undefeated at this point. I don't really know how good the boys are doing. So, are they doing good? So, well, that's good to know. So, a lot of good things going on with our athletic teams as well as academic. All right. Adopt the agenda. I hear a motion that we adopt our agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Weathers, second by Ms. Arden. Any discussion? No discussion, the agenda be adopted. All vote aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Approve the consent agenda, so all that been done. Report of the county attorney. Mayor Jennings is not here tonight.
You need to go back and approve the consent. You need to approve the consent agenda.
Approve the consent agenda. Okay. Approve the consent, all, do I hear a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Second.
Second by Ms. Armstrong, motion by Mr. Weathers. All in favor of approving the consent agenda, vote aye.
Aye.
The opposed, it shows pass unanimously. Mayor Jennings is in East Tennessee at a special ed law conference, so he won't be here with us tonight, so I guess we have a report from the mayor. He said if we ran up on anything that we needed, and his input on, that he would have his phone with him, we could call him if we needed to, so hopefully we won't have to bother the mayor while he's in this conference. Report of the director of schools, Dr. Wright.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. If you'll notice at your place, I gave some substantial information plus a packet instead of the standard report as far as going through. And much of it just to not only give you an update, but also to talk about what's transpiring, particularly with Tenn Ready, where are we, what's our position, and what's really sort of manifesting itself across the state as we look at a new testing. And again, this is something that many districts are looking with, really not so much apprehension as far as the not knowing. And it's really a big issue simply because of not only the transition, but also how it's being presented. It's no secret that from the State Department making statements that not only will you have an implementation dip, but you're also looking at possibly the number of students scoring proficient will not be as high as what we've seen in the past, to looking at issues across the state. So there's been a lot of conversation, much of it public, but much of it also very private. So where are we? What's the position? And what I will say is that there's been a lot of conversation behind the scenes as far as with Tenn Ready. And with it being that, how is it going to be presented? How will it work? What will be the implications for students and what will be the implications for teachers? And the thing that I would say that as far as particularly with conversation that we've had internally and with conversations that we've had with colleagues across the state, our concern being that with anything that when you present it as such, well, the students are possibly not going to do very well because we don't know what proficiency is going to look like, to things such as, well, we know there's going to be a dip in implementation. And I liken that very much to a coach, and several of you have already heard me say this, a coach going out saying, well, the team's bigger, better, you're probably going to get blistered, you're probably going to get hurt, but go out there and give it your best shot.
But they were playing Alabama.
Well, and and that's not very encouraging. That's not very encouraging, but that's what's been presented there. And the thing that we have had conversation in this district, and the term that I've used very carefully, is that we look at this as a hold harmless year. There's been conversation with the state. In fact, they've been brought with me as far as the conversation that I've had in dialogue not only with the commissioner, but even with some legislators. And I know that some of the comments have been that, we've not been very vocal about it. Well, there was a reason why we've not been very vocal about it, because not only are we going to take care of our students, but we're going to take care of our staff as well. And something that, Mr. Chair, if you will allow me, this was several weeks ago that was sent to the commissioner, and I will say that she has been most respectful and listening because she's getting a lot of comments from a lot of people. And what I said, more or less, was first, there's not one teacher worth their salt as opposed to student assessment and being held accountable. What has transpired over time is the mandated connection between student assessment and teacher evaluation, which is now tied to performance or differentiated pay. I've watched the transformation of some of our strongest teachers, whether it was one in Knox County, which, Ms. Dunn alluded to the resolution that came out of Knox County, and I spent 30 years in that system, are now in Wilson County, become fixated on student assessment outcomes and the impact on current and future earnings, because that's what's occurred. This year has brought more questions and concerns over what the outcomes will look like with Tenn Ready, regardless of the repeated assurances from the state and the reduction of the assessment percentage in their evaluations, or our, in Wilson County, assurances of looking at the best of a 3-year average. I'm concerned with the unintended consequences we have created with the teacher evaluation model, which I'm a strong proponent and have been since its inception. The inequity among teachers within a school, whether it's tested or non-tested areas, and the fixation on performance pay. With that said, we, Wilson County Schools, have closely documented the Tennessee Ready assessments from the first day to provide good and credible feedback, not only for our own purposes, but to provide the state with critical feedback prior to the statewide assessments early next year. And I go through a list of what I presented to them. Again, everyone recognizes this is new ground, and there will certainly be hiccups in the transition to across-the-board online testing. The districts on block schedules understood the need for a guinea pig school. However, the schools that will test later in the year will have the benefit of what has been learned from this early testing. Over 73,000 students have been tested to date across the state. Considering the heated tension that has continued and will continue across the state focused on student assessment and testing, much of it unfounded but nurtured by special groups, is a possibility of looking at a hold harmless this first year. Parents and teachers are prepared for a worst-case scenario due to the communications presented from the beginning that there will be a dip in performance, not as many students will be proficient, and as with any new assessment or program, there will be issues. Administering the assessments are not a question or even a point of debate, but consider the possibility of using this first-year rollout as a diagnostic year and not apply possibly questionable outcomes to teachers or students, except as a diagnostic data to inform the state to trends, patterns, issues in the application for future years. I and many colleagues across the state believe this would negate much of the growing criticism and subtle sabotage that is occurring across the state should the state elect to hold harmless first year in transitioning to Tennessee Ready. We know and understand the federal government obligations and race to the top requirements, and that's part of what's driving all this, ladies and gentlemen. But it would not be about not administering Tenn Ready, but making a credible determination on testing equity across the state, looking at technology access, bandwidth, testing conditions, scheduling, preparation, technical issues with younger students, keyboard skills. It's not about ability, but whether they can type. Much could be learned as we continue to build the plane and possibly give us good information where we might have unanticipated disparities across the state in teaching and learning. Good questions are and will be asked by districts testing later in the school year, and some have been shared that are happy to know that several of us have started the process ahead of them. They are learning from us, and we are happy to provide answers as we know them. However, the students and teachers participating in the first series of assessments are anxious about the testing results due to unforeseen events and issues during the testing period. There has been nothing major or horrendous. The smallest event triggers much anxiety. Commissioner, what I've suggested in allowing a hold harmless year is not an idea unique to me, but one that has been suggested is a good way to gently move into the testing arena, into the new testing arena. It would undoubtedly soften the critics and would relieve much anxiety, particularly with teachers, once the first tests are administered and completed. These are merely thoughts and observations, and I promise, no criticism intended in any way. And it goes on with that. There was conversation that took place between the commissioner and myself Friday morning in preparation for a document that went out, which I gave you a copy of that correspondence that went out, which is in front of you. And then with that, because of what is occurring, with resolutions, everything from looking at not counting student scores. The thing, if you remember, this board adopted, we intentionally dropped the amount that they would count to 15%, which was the lowest, that was the minimum that the state would allow. There was also a great deal of thinking behind that we had discussed as a district. What the state allowed, there is no waiver, there is no grace period, but what the state did legislate, that if the scores are not returned within 5 days after school is out, you don't count them. Well, the state's already said, the scores are not gonna come back on time. They're not gonna be here. But here's what our teachers told us. Our teachers told us, please do not broadcast that the scores are not gonna count, and right now I'm broadcasting, because they will not take the test seriously. That came from our teachers. And the reason they were concerned, I'm getting some nods from heads, and you know exactly what I'm talking about, because the idea of that much effort and time, it still gives us a good measure as far as what they know, what they need to work on, but it also gives us a good indication as far as what's the value of the test. The other implication as far as the way that we have set up in Wilson County is that teacher evaluation model. And I will say, and I said this when I interviewed with this district, it's a sensible model. It's one that did create some tension that first year because it wasn't understood. But as we have moved forward with that, our teachers have done well on that model when you look at the observation side of it. I presented to you last year, or last spring, that out of 1,133 certified teachers, 626 scored at least a level 5, which was an $850 raise for that next year. 265 scored at a level 4, which was a $600 raise for that next year. 70 scored at level 3 for $350. There were 11 teachers that scored a 1 or a 2 that did not get a raise, and there were 154 new teachers without scores for that year. Moving to this year. These are very rough. They're up as far as the calculations, but again, you're talking about current and future earnings for our teachers. 553 have scored at a level 5, which is an additional, that's that $850 raise again. 320, a level 4, which is the $600 raise. And 87 have scored at a level 3. We have right now, looks like 9 teachers that are level 2s. And we've got about 310 without scores that are interim inactive scores that we are looking at, and that's all rough. But what I'm saying is that it becomes really important that we look at that performance model as something that our teachers have embraced based on what they are providing as good instruction in the classroom. I also presented you with a letter in there that I sent as reassurances that our principals share with our teachers. And if you will look in there, that, again, was as a reminder, and I'll let me read it again so it will be read into the record. Early on in the new pay process, we made a commitment to resolve any issues with solutions that would best benefit teachers. We are very aware of the tension and stress teachers are expressing this year as they navigate another year of seismic change and still managing to provide great instruction for their students. I continue to be amazed and in awe of what I witness our teachers provide daily for our boys and girls. So here's what we are proposing as we continue our commitment to our teachers. The first thing to remember is that pay is based on scores from 2 years ago. So this year's 2015-16 pay should have been based on 2013-14 scores. However, the 2013-14 scores came out amid many questions statewide, and there was a lack of confidence in grades 3 through 8 for the teachers in the audience as how the scores were figured. In keeping with our promise, we selected the best of either 12-13 or 13-14 scores so that the teacher had the benefit of either year. That was one of the first things we implemented when I came in the district last year, because there was the fear that there was no confidence, and I had no confidence in those scores. Next year, 2016-2017, the pay should be based on 14-15 scores. But that was the year that our high schools had 1 year of 7-period classes. I'm seeing some nods in the audience again. Once again, we want to make sure that any decision we make is based on what is right for teachers. Therefore, we will continue the best of process, and we will select the best of 13-14 or 14-15 scores in order to figure pay for the 2016-17 school year. Finally, the 2017-18 pay should be based on the 15-16 scores, which is the first year of Tenn ready and computerized online testing. It is our strong belief that those scores should be treated as a hold harmless year. That's a decision that we have the flexibility as a district to make. And that is provided in the Tennessee Teaching Evaluation Act that came out last spring. For the 2017-18 years, teachers will receive the same pay raise that they received in 2016-17 year unless their 2015-16 scores are higher. We don't know. That might happen. It very well could happen. In reality, this means that the teacher's pay will be based on the best of either 2013, 14, 14, 15, or 15, 16 scores. That's complicated, but you know what? We are going to make sure that we provide that best information to make sure that the teachers have the best score. And that is our hold harmless provision. I ask principals to please share this information with their teachers on Monday, November the 30th, hopefully to diminish any fears or apprehension they might have with the continued uncertainty with Tenn ready assessments. Our expectations are that they continue to provide great instruction to every child every day, but then great teachers do that regardless of the situation or the circumstances. And so that was what came as a reaction because, again, what has been legislated? We do have the flexibility as a district to make that determination, and we're taking that flexibility. And with that, with the scores for the students, again, we dropped it to the minimum. We thought that was something important that needed to be done. It's not that we don't take it as far as that is the importance of it, but again, we minimized, in case the scores came back, we minimized the impact. The other thing, as far as teachers know this, not greatly understood, that the thing with the Tennessee Teaching Evaluation Act, the governor reduced the amount what that evaluation would count that first year to 10%, rolls into 20%, and then back, because again, looking at that evaluation model. So the implications as far as that we've not been paying attention, that we've not stepped out. One district right now has stepped out, and that was Knox County. And again, I can speak to that when I spent 30 years there. It's a different system, different situation, but the concerns that we all have are all the same. They had to do what they need to do. We are doing what we're doing as far as thinking what's in the best interest of our teachers and paying attention to what our teachers are saying. And so you also have in there some questions that came out that was also provided, that came out on Friday for you to go through and look at. The thing that I wanted to make sure this board understood, as well as those that might get the impression that we've not been doing anything, that we're not paying attention. Ladies and gentlemen, I tell you, and I will tell you with complete honesty, we're going to do what's right for our teachers, and we're going to do what's right for our students. And the thing is that there's been a lot of conversation that's been going on behind the scenes. We've not been out there beating our chest or talking loudly, but it's been very intense, it's been very focused, it's been very deliberate, but we're going to take the letter of what that law is going to allow us, and we're going to use that flexibility. And that I wanted to make sure that was understood and shared with the board tonight, because that is very important to note. And I also wanted to note as far as how well our teachers are doing when you look at the level from 3s, 4s, and 5s, and the majority of the numbers are at the level 5. And that is a pay raise that continues with them. It's not a one-time that many of the districts implemented. It's a one-time bonus that they do not have it continued in their pay in the year. So that is something that we take pride in. We will look at this year as a diagnostic year. And with it, that's what we learned a great deal from, as far as, because we don't know. We don't know what the outcomes are going to be. But I cannot say enough about our teachers as far as preparing our students. Are they frustrated? Of course they are. Are they apprehensive? Yes, they are. But the thing is that when you walk into these classrooms and watch what they're doing and the confidence that they're building in their kids, it's absolutely amazing, and I'm so proud of them and what they're doing. And the thing that we're also doing is making sure that we're having conversation. We've met with Melissa Lynn with WCEA, and we share those concerns, and we'll continue to have conversation, because that's important that we keep everyone aware of what we're doing and what we're thinking as well. Our mantra is go for growth. And it's amazing what our teachers are doing for those youngsters particularly that, again, there's a lot of things that are said about value added and looking at growth and Ms. Dunn was right. Bill Sanders, who happens to be a very good friend that came out of the University of Tennessee, he developed a growth model and it was based around agriculture. But the thing is, when he started looking at it, he started looking at the impact of a teacher has on a child. And as far as recognizing where they come in at any given point and how that teacher can grow them beyond a school year, and they come in at different circumstances. That law was put in place in 1992, and there was never the intention, ever, that that would ever be used in teacher evaluations.
And yet here we are.
But yet, here we are, because it was legislated, but that was never his intention. He's been very maligned and defamed because that was never, and that's why it was put in the law in such a way so it wouldn't be used. But growth, when used properly and appropriately, it's amazing that the magic that a teacher has in a classroom with youngsters that come in at different abilities, and you can measure that. But we're using it the wrong way, and that's a public opinion that. So that you have that information. You also, each of the board members you have.
Before we move on,
I'm sorry.
I got a couple of questions for you. Does the current language at the State Department level give us the flexibility to treat this as an assessment or an analysis year and not apply it toward our teacher and student scores?
No, it does not.
Okay, then I'm going to suggest that this board create a resolution to submit to both our state legislature and our State Department of Education to grant that for any system that wishes to take it for this current year. And I would put that in the form of a motion, Mr. Chairman, because we can't leave it to the state to make the right decision for what's best for us. Obviously, the last 3-4 years of our screwed up testing, pardon my French, our debacle in our testing leaves me with no confidence that they're going to make the right decision with 10 reading. So I think we have to protect ourselves. And that means we should do whatever it takes to get our legislators involved and get the State Department of Education to consider the statewide situation and not just a system by system.
Well, and that, again, we have the flexibility as a district as far as how we are going to, as far as use it with our evaluation model. And also, as I said before, as far as the students, schools won't be back in time to use it. So that flexibility, that's why I was going through that, because again, for our teachers, there is an impact on their current earnings and future earnings. And with looking at that, that's why we developed the best of three, letting them determine which score they would use, because we don't have confidence knowing what the 10 rating results will look like. So that's something we are allowed by law, and that's what we're taking advantage of. If you're asking as far as the resolution, that would be something that I would, I guess, want input from teachers, because that would take that earning impact out if we were going to say that we were not going to use Tennessee ready results in the 17-18 year. Because some of them might do well, some might not. So again, that's why I was presenting this information to you tonight. What we have done, what action we've taken as a district, and something that we started last year. So.
Okay.
So that would be a board determination as far as the direction you would want to take.
So how would that be known concerning the teachers? How would you get that information? That is what it involved.
We could work with WCA as far as to do a survey, whatever it might be. Again, when you look, I guess the dynamics, when you look at the model in Knox County and their evaluation model, they had a performance pay plan that was predicated on a TIP grant. They ran out of money and it was not budgeted, so there's a different dynamic that's taking place there with looking at evaluating and what we have in place. Ours is budgeted, theirs was not. That created a lot of tension, it created a lot of anger and feelings based on that. So that helped push that.
I guess one of my concerns would be, even if we presented this to the teachers, the the structure seems so complicated, I was wondering if they would even understand what it is they would get back out of this, unless we worded it very specifically. Are you going to continue to receive, I mean, if there is no evaluation in the process, does that mean we do away completely with that bonus pay? Is that what you're
No.
saying?
No.
Well, if there's,
We'll find another way to make the determination.
I'm not quite sure what we would do, because that evaluation, the way it's set up with the performance pay, which was presented to this district, to the board, really a year before I arrived, and how that was tied. But again, when you look at the way the model's set up, and Ms. Sparks can certainly help me with this, it's not based on just the testing scores, but also that observation score, which is a higher percentage,
It is. It
which
is
this
based,
district set up.
that's correct. It's based on the growth, it's based on achievement, and it's based on the observation scores.
Maybe that's what we base, until Tenn Ready is tested and proven to be a viable tool, and the results of the Tenn Ready process are quantifiable and acceptable, then maybe we do something along the observation score as the guideline for determining what level the teachers are. You know, I think they have not demonstrated over the last 3-4 years that they know how to make this work right. Every year it's another story.
I don't
It's another
disagree with that.
story, it's another story. And I don't think they've got their act together yet, because they just had a turnover in administration. And we know that Dr. McQueen is probably a very talented educator. We know the guy that was there before was not. So I think that from that standpoint, we need to give ourselves some leeway to make sure our teachers get rewarded and our students don't get punished for a bad process.
And again, I think those are the safeguards that we have put in place. You know, and if that's the, the direction of the board as far as to write a resolution along that line, I would also suggest there's 141 districts in the state right now. That's not something, again, Ms. Dunn, there's boards that are being urged to take that step, but it's not getting the momentum, again, because much of it waiting to see what is going to happen, particularly with the flexibility that districts do have, and knowing that the scores are not going to come back in time. I mean, that is by admission by the commissioner that the scores will not be back in time to be counted. So, what I presented to you tonight was what we have done, the direction we've done, the conversations I shared with you as far as that's taken place. And again, there was a lengthy conversation with the commissioner Friday before she sent out the notation to the directors, reminding superintendents and directors exactly what the flexibility they had and how to look at this. There is also some side conversations right now. The term I use is hold harmless is being used with several legislators as we speak, to go back and look at this as a hold harmless year across the board. Because this is what happens, if you have districts that are opting out, what do the results mean? But, they're going to become skewed. And that's the thing that's been a problem. How do you explain that? If you allow one district to opt out and you have the others, what do the results mean? So, again, there's a lot of conversations, there's several legislators involved right now. So again, at the pleasure of the board, if that's what we need, we feel that we need to do, we'll do so. But I think my recommendation being that we have a really good process in place right now. Our teachers are benefiting the feedback that we're getting. Yes, it's complicated, but again, we're trying to give them in their best interest, give them hope, and again, our scores indicate that they're doing well.
Well, we've seen their scores, as you've mentioned, in level 5, 4, and 3, and there are very few below the level 4 area marker there. So if we were to provide some kind of resolution in order not to involve the evaluation as part of the scoring there, would that leave us with an opportunity to just allow teachers to choose or remain on that same level of the bonus pay that they were prior for last year?
Well, for what Dr. Wright has proposed, the year of pay that's based on the Tenn Ready test, they would either receive the same pay bump that they got the year before, or if their 10 ready scores are greater, better, they would receive that. So we didn't want to discount the fact that some may be good. It does have a way of holding harmless the 10 ready test and still keeping it in the ballpark of what the teachers have done. And they've worked hard, and those statistics, those numbers are showing that.
May I ask Melissa if she has any input into what she feels that, what she hears from her teachers, or has that been a discussion among you yet?
I think, like Dr. Wright said, they are apprehensive as to what the test looks like, what the scores will look like. So we were pleased when we got the email that we would not be held accountable, or we might.
Your choice.
But, our choice, but it did relieve a lot of people that we were going to have that choice. But I think we fear, just looking at the MICA testing, that the scores probably are not going to be good.
But yet it would not lower any kind of pay. There would be no.
No, I don't think it would lower.
Okay.
If we keep our old scores, or if we go with Don's resolution, I don't think it would lower our pay.
I think that's what most of us are concerned about, is we don't want to go backward with any kind of pay at all. And, I think that's the main issue. So however we arrive at that point is what I think we're trying to all come to a conclusion.
And that's something that, in talking to the commissioner on Friday, and it was with a public announcement, I made it very clear that this was what we were doing as a district, because again, it was to protect our teachers. And that's the term I've used, is holding harmless.
And I think what most teachers and administrators and people across the state are concerned with is the fact that our legislators have put so much money into this testing realm and the evaluations. I don't think it has anything much to do with the districts in and of themselves. I think it has to do with this whole process of money that's been spent and how it could be used in a better way within every district and for every teacher.
And again, it goes back to much of what we did as far as to win the race to the top, $501 million as a state. And even with the updates and the modifications that went to the federal government, those, they did not change that. And so that's the politics behind that award. But we've got to take care of our teachers, and we've got to take care of our kids.
We have a motion on the floor from Mr.
Let me ask one more question, Mr. Thompson, before you take action on it. If I get my microphone. We, as a board, have the legal authority and latitude to do what you have proposed without any approval from the State Department of Education or any change in state law.
Yes, sir.
So if we choose to use the scores for this year or not use the scores for this year, we have every right to do that.
Yes, sir.
So,
I can give you that with all assurances.
okay, if that's the case, then Mr. Thompson, I withdraw my motion.
All right, motion been withdrawn. And while we're on this subject, and I know clock's running, but just, what was it, last week or week before last, that the U.S. Congress and Senate voted to give some authority back
Yes.
to the state.
The
to-
ESSA Act.
Yes, the No Child Left Behind thing and all that kind of stuff. So all this is, that we're talking about is fluid. It's moving back and forth all the time. Nobody really knows what's going to come down the road. And so we need to protect ourselves as a local LEA.
Absolutely.
Take care of our people.
Absolutely.
As it stands now, looks like we may have some of that authority if it all gets worked out through the state. As Mr. Withers has said, they haven't showed a whole lot of ability down there to make a rational decision when it comes to educational issues in the last few years. I think we're all in agreement on that. But I say all that to say this: as long as the LEAs are going to get some flexibility as to what we can do and what we can't do, then that's what we need, that's where we need to strive, that's where we need to try to get. But with this stuff moving back and forth every month or so, we don't really know what to do. That's something other that we as a board and you as a director and our county attorney is gonna have to stay up on and watch everything that comes out and make sure that we are very much aware of what's going on. And hopefully, our elected officials down there will keep us advised of what's going on, and we need to rely on the TSBA and their legal counsel that's down there in the chambers every day, watching those type of issues, to keep us informed of what's going on.
And I can assure this board, I am not a quiet participant.
Might not be a bad idea to prepare a resolution just in case we needed to rush one through in a hurry.
Well, there's a certain deadline it has to be put in by, so we need to.
We might be able to slip something in if we can get our legislators to work with us.
And I appreciate the work that Dr. Wright has done in her communications with Commissioner McLean as well, so thank you very much, I appreciate it.
It's necessary.
Moving on along, Doctor.
Also, like I said, and my apologies. Every board member was provided our school report card of schools that reside within your district. It's really a one-page sheet, easy to read, one that I think that whether you're visiting schools, talking to administrators, gives you some good information. And again, everything that's within your district's provided with you, so that's there for your use. You also have, and it's in a new format, you'll find the monthly year-to-date budget. It has a blue cover sheet. The month of November also been provided for you. I also want to note that last year we received a grant of a little over $47,000 from U-Trust that was put to great use. One that's, again, we're providing some information for them. We started a College Board pre-AP curriculum for middle school that's really gaining a great deal of interest across the state, watching what we're doing in rewriting middle school preparation. And then the second piece that was used was a Pareto analysis as far as to look at individual scores to help boost ACT scores. And again, really have gotten great results. We've been awarded now, which I thanked U-Trust, $57,000 based on the results that we were getting last year, provide seed money that we will look at a literacy program for older adolescents, Achieve 3000, which gets incredible results that we've seen with struggling students, and our administrators have asked that it's something that we could expand across the board as far as looking at literacy. So with that, we'll be addressing that. You also have a copy of a concept, and is Mayor Craighead? There he is. Chair Thomason and myself met with Mayor Craighead to talk through a concept. It's a countywide tourism development pilot that looks at the city of Mount Juliet, Lebanon, and Watertown, but also looking at Wilson County as a whole as an agreement. And again, we did not do anything other than really approve and really had great interest in the concept and signed off on that. So, Mayor, if you'll just take a minute just to share your idea and how it's gaining momentum, please.
Thank you. I tell you, we can take lessons from the way y'all started out of music and stand-up comic and all. It's really good. I appreciate it. Talented to say it's all right. Let's write about Wilson County. What we have is the mayors have gone together, Mayor Haggerty, Mayor Jennings, myself, Mayor Hutto. We've been discussing ways that we can make a difference in Wilson County and in our communities and provide the quality of life improvements, and that's going to take infrastructure. This pilot program, we feel like if you go after the destination tourism of trying to go after youth and all to come here, stay here, have tournaments and all, we can improve the tax dollar base for our community through more hotels, more restaurants, and then when they come here, for example, when Cava comes here, you'll have an increase in, which is baseball tournament, we'll have 30 or 40 teams. You'll have an increase at the outlet mall of about 10% in sales. It just brings that many people in. We're looking at trying to find a way to generate more dollars to support our community and our students without being on the backs of our citizens. It's no different than what we're doing right now, going through a census and trying to get our numbers up so that we can get the dollars from the state there without looking to our citizens. If we go together, the good thing, the real key thing here is cooperation and commitment. Here we have cooperation of all the cities, and we're going to be going to the budget committee and then for the county and then to the county to get their support. And once we have the commitment of the cities and the county and the dedication of the dollars, we can make things like this happen. In the packet are some ideas or concepts of soccer fields, baseball fields, similar to what has happened over at Murfreesboro, where they have a 10 field soccer. Late Memorial Day or Labor Day, they had something like 160 teams, 3,000 people came and stayed in their community. The impact on that community, I don't know what that dollar was, but it had to be in the millions. And we have the location right here close. We have some great facilities already with our parks and all. We can build on that, have something extra for our citizens, but also have these fields and this idea and the concept so it'd be dedicated toward getting more tourism in here. It's going to take a little bit of commitment, and it's out of new growth, but it's a small number of acreage, and we're getting commitments through all the chambers. The Mount Juliet, they voted unanimous of their council and Lebanon in support of this. We're getting Mount Watertown, I think Mike sent it before his council this week. We've had support of the health and wellness and the tourism, and I presented it to another group there and then from the county. We're having letters of support coming in from the soccer leagues. We had a presentation at our city the other day of appreciation for the city from the soccer, and I didn't realize it, but they have over 6,000 people that go to their fields every week because of the soccer program. This is something that we need more fields. This is a way that we can improve our community and make an everlasting change while building and nurturing that base of tax that I think that we can really increase. And as you know, the sales tax mainly comes to the schools. And if we can increase the hotels, the restaurants, and that will spur the sales tax in the stores and new retail, I think this will make a major change in the future of our community. And while we're all working together, and that's the other thing, it's a big thing of community from Mount Juliet, Lebanon, Watertown, in the county, to working on the common goal, but also in that cooperation, but putting the funds behind it to make it happen. So I wanted to leave this with you. If you have any questions, please call me. I've talked to several people over this, and I'm still reaching out. And we hope to make this happen and try to get it all in place. It's just a foundation. It's going to take a while before it really catches some momentum, but it's a 15-year pilot with an addition of 5 more. So if you have any questions, please reach out to me. I'd be glad to love to come and talk to you and kind of get into the real details. Thank you very much for your support. And we're so excited about the new renovations happening on the east side of town. Thank you.
Thank you. And then to close, I've asked for an update on the Watertown Elementary project. Again, there's been a lot that's really transpired in the last 2 weeks, so I asked Mickey to update the board where we are and what the timeline looks like.
The units, as we told you at the last board meeting, was scheduled to be there on the 23rd of November. They did arrive. They had 13 installed last week. We're hoping to get 13 this week. The ones that go in the annex, if you remember what the annex was, it's a 7 classroom addition here on the left. We won't do that till Christmas break when they all leave, because those are active classrooms. So they will do that during the Christmas break. The rooms are being put back together right now. Our goal is to have everything back in place and hopefully have an open house for the community on January the 10th, which is a Sunday afternoon, and hopefully we'll have the students back on January the 11th. That is our goal at this time, and based on what the contractors have told us, we should be okay meeting that time frame. So hopefully by the 11th, I know our student board member's yelling out, he wanted the 4th and 5th graders out there, so we're very close. And I'll try to answer the questions on that, but basically when they get their new facility back, it'll be 4 walls have been, it's going wall to wall and ceiling to floor, so it'll be a complete change when the staff and the students come back to that particular facility. So that'll answer any questions anybody may have.
Are we going to do a re-inspection to make sure that all the mold has been eradicated prior to air quality?
We'll have an air quality test, yes, sir.
And what have they been, it's been about 3 units a day, is that what they've
Roughly, yeah, they had the luxury of getting, before the order came in, they took half the units out and got ready, so they could just put them in, and so they're hoping to have, the older part of the building, the 2-story addition, and the single part down to where the gym was, or is, that's what they will have done before, hopefully the end of this week. Then we will go in and do cleaning of the floors, and then our goal is next week is to start bringing the furniture and return all that back to the classroom. So the teachers they will have a work day on the 4th of January, and hopefully they will spend that in their time getting their classrooms ready for the open house on the 10th.
pristine, sterile conditions. And with that, in January, I'm going to plan on going over the entry plan I presented to this board when I interviewed. That was really the blueprint that I used in the interview, but it was also my entry plan. I want to present that to the board as far as where we are, what still needs to be done, and even some adjustments and changes, because many of the goals that were set out, we met fairly quickly. And again, as a district, and I think the results that we saw, particularly in our early grades, we've done quite well this past year, but I want to use that and present to this board in January. And with that, Mr. Chair, that concludes my report.
So you're gonna make that report in January?
In January, yes, sir.
We still have a motion on the floor.
Excuse me?
We still have a motion on the floor.
Okay, thank you. And the motion is gone?
Not withdrew.
I withdrew that motion. Thank you, Ms. Wardford.
Thank you.
All right, you guys have heard the report from the director of schools. I hear a motion that we receive our report. Motion from Ms. Armstrong. I hear a second. Second from Mr. Roberts. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right. Recommendations from the director of schools, Dr. Wright.
Tonight, we're going to start with, we have one first reading. Again, is to approve proposed changes on first reading to board policy section 5.308 on sabbatical leave. And again, this is just a language change, and it's interesting because earlier we were getting the definition of shall. On line 1, we're asking to change regular employees or teachers instead of shall may be entitled to a leave of absence. So I'm asking for your approval on first reading.
So moved.
Second.
You've heard the recommendation, Director. You've got a motion from Ms. Armstrong, second by Mr. Robinson. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Any discussion? This shall pass unanimously. I believe we all need a sabbatical leave.
After the last 3 board meetings, Mr. Chairman, I agree.
I think we need a sabbatical.
I will talk faster. The second recommendation is board policy section 5.115 on assignment and transfers. This is up for second reading. Again, you'll see just, again, some language changes on lines 3 and 4. I'm asking for approval.
Motion by Mr. Robinson, here second.
Second.
Second by Mr. Withers. Any discussion? Then no further discussion, all in favor, vote aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Let it show the pass unanimously.
Next is, again, second reading to board policy, section 5.203 on non-renewal. And if you look again, that was an addition and change in language on line 9 and 10, that, to read it in its entirety, if the director of school determines not to renew the contract of a non-tenured teacher, written notice of non-renewal shall be hand-delivered or sent to the employee by registered mail so that it will be received by the employee within 5 business days following the last instructional day of the school year, which coincides with the previous policy just approved.
You heard the motion on policies 5.203. Do I hear a motion? Motion by Mr. Robinson, do I hear a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Armstrong. All, any discussion?
It's a good thing I've read these beforehand because they're not opening up on our screen up here.
I agree. Do not open it.
How much will that read? What's the vote on that?
The vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Let it show the pass unanimously. Go ahead.
Okay, second reading to board policy 6.200 on attendance. And this one was to update, there was still language that was left on No Child Left Behind. That's been stricken on line 2. And so that will put us as far as up to date and again, the language.
You heard the recommendations on 6.200. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Motion by Mrs. Armstrong, do I hear a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Then no discussion, I assume you're ready to vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Let it show the pass unanimously. All right.
Okay, the second one is also a second reading, section 6, it's 6.203, school admissions as written. I'm asking for approval again, admission or striking power of attorney and using order of the court.
You've heard the recommendation of the director on 6.203. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Motion by Ms. Armstrong, do I hear a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Robinson. Any discussion? Being no discussion, I assume you're ready to vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Let it show the pass unanimously.
Second reading on 6.304 on student discrimination, harassment, intimidation, and bullying. There was additional changes on page 4 of 7. New language as far as an administration will investigate. I'm asking for approval on second reading.
You've heard the recommendation of the director, 6.304.
So moved.
So, motion by Mr. Robinson, do I hear a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Armstrong. Any discussion? Being no discussion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Let it show the pass unanimously.
Second reading again, this is section 6.312, use of personal communication devices. This was additional language added on line 7, the addition being and cell phones. Asking for approval.
So moved.
Motion by Ms. Armstrong, do I hear a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Robinson. Any discussion? Being no discussion, I'll assume you're ready to vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Let it show that it passed unanimously.
Second reading to policy 6.411, student wellness on physical activity and nutrition. This was also discussed during our work session. I think some assurances were given with that. I'm asking for approval on second reading.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Robinson, second by Ms. Armstead. All in favor? All in favor say aye.
Aye. No.
No. Okay. Let it show pass 4-1. Okay.
And I'm asking for approval on second reading on 6.712, student transportation in private vehicles. Again, there was some language that was stricken from the first line that was not policy language, and then adding a successful background check, where this was also discussed during the work session.
You've heard the recommendation of the director on policy number 6.712. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Motion by Ms. Robinson, second by Ms. Armstead. Any discussion at this time?
Mr. Chairman, I do want to ask Mr. Jennings to evaluate this policy so that the language would reflect that what is acceptable and then what's not acceptable for students, transporting students.
And that was noted.
Okay.
And clarification of that.
As when the policy applies to them and doesn't apply to them. Is that what we're talking about?
Right.
When the policy is applicable or not?
Exactly, exactly.
Are we all good with that? Okay, assume we're ready to vote. All in favor of policy 6.712, vote aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Let it show that it passed unanimously.
Okay, in front of you as well, I'm asking for approval of the Wilson County School Middle School Course Catalog for 2016-17. You have approved last month as far as the high school catalog. Well, in front of you now is something that's unique, one that will help middle school parents make informed decisions, give them guidance, and also as far as preparation for high school. Again, this is a draft proposal that has been well-written, well-defined, and I see it's something that's been needed for a long time, so I'm asking approval.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Armstrong, second by Mr. Robinson and Mr. Weathers. Any discussion?
I just want to say that I talked to Ms. Rowan about it earlier and was excited to see that we do have a course catalog for middle school, and I was particularly interested in the format and how it gives you an insight as a middle school parent, grandparent, whoever's looking at it, as to what is necessary for that quick transition from middle school to high school for our young people. And if you look at that and you see how quickly this time is going to pass, and you're thinking, what does my student need to take or my child need to take to get to that point in high school for graduation, it's very clearly laid out, so I appreciate that. And I did have questions about the exploratory classes and how they were offered in the different school settings, as middle school settings are set up in each different, Mount Dewey Middle, West Wilson Middle, Watertown Elementary, and so we talked about how many of these are actually offered, these exploratory courses, how many of the students are involved in those exploratory courses, the advantages of having those for those middle school, for those schools that are basically all middle school instead of the K-8 schools, and how limited our K-8 schools are involved in this particular process when it comes to exploratory. They're very limited because of the staffing and the time scheduling as well. So I'm hoping that as we look at this and see how important it is for our young people to be, as Angela and I were talking, as pre-high school, or it's a pre-high school course catalog as such. So I'm hoping that we can see how good this is. And
Very well done. Very well done.
Parents involved in this.
And also the opportunity for parents to know that students can start their high school credits in middle school. And that's something that's not always well known, and they're surprised, so.
So yay, thank you. Thank you.
Do I hear a motion that we approve the middle school course catalog for 16-17 as written? Do I hear a motion?
We did.
Did we get? We were done.
We just need a vote.
All in vote, in favor say aye.
Aye. I just
Vote.
expounded, I'm sorry.
Everyone's getting
I'm
tired.
so excited.
That's about it, looking better every day. Approve an SRO agreement with Sheriff Robert Bryant.
Yes,
Right.
and this is something, a little over a month ago, I had a good conversation with the Sheriff's Department and Sheriff Bryan, some of his, I would refer to as his senior staff, and then also with Wilson County Schools. something that's not been in place, and something that we are somewhat obligated to have an agreement. And so with that, with the good relationship that we have with the, when you look at what's going on with our SRO placements in our schools and the responsiveness of the sheriff's department as far as we need them, I'm asking for approval from this board to accept this agreement.
You've heard the recommendation of the director that we approve this agreement with the sheriff's office, Sheriff Bryan, about our SRO program. Do I hear a motion? Motion by Mr. Withers and Mr. Robinson both. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Armstead. Any discussion? I'd just like to say that we have SRO in every school.
Yes, sir.
We don't share an officer anymore like we have in the past. We do have one now in every school. And I believe, ladies and gentlemen, that we may be one of the only districts in the state of Tennessee that can say that. So that is very something that we all need to be very proud of. And it goes back a long, long way until back to Sheriff Ash. Even my tenure years and years ago when I was on the county commission, when we implemented that program. And it's just continued to grow and get better all the time. And it's something that I'm very proud of. Any other discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, let us show that it passes unanimously. Dr. Wright.
And then we have, to that, asking for approval for an early retirement incentive packet as written. It's in there in its entirety. If you'll look at the voluntary early retirement incentive, it's not something that's new. It's for any employee who wishes to retire from the school system at the end of the 15-16 school year. You're looking at, it will be offered through January the 15th. I'm asking for approval as written.
Motion by Ms. Armstead, I hear a second.
Second.
Any discussion?
I didn't go back, I looked at this, but I didn't look at the prior. There's no change in all that.
Just dates.
That was gonna be my question too. This, it's the same it's always been.
It's just dates.
Just the dates, different.
That's the only thing what we adjusted.
How many people we have taken advantage of that last year?
On average, we'll average 15 to 20, depending on who's at that place in their career.
Got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor of the approving the early retirement incentive, vote aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Let it show that passion
That, Mr. Chair, concludes recommendations.
Any old business to come before the board this time?
I do have some old business.
Yes, ma'am.
I would like to resubmit a proposal concerning our property for a high school. And with reasons of concern for lack of availability so far for our new RFP, I understand from Mr. Hall that we have not received any other RFPs at this time. Nothing has changed since we released the new RFP from our last meeting, which it was sent out November the 4th, is that right? November the 4th? So as a board, and we're responsible for creating opportunities, educational opportunities for our young people, I find it very important that we look at this piece of property and that's being offered in the West Division Street area in the west end of Mount Juliet, near the Davidson County line it is. But knowing that our student population has shown, and we've had studies to prove from the experts, Ms. Porter in the audience tonight with us, and Jason Morris as well with his drawings and diagrams, that that most of the growth is north of I-40, and that the west end of the county, this is the area shown to be the hot spots, and it's the saturated density of students and where that is where they currently are located. So as a responsibility of the board to provide these schools to meet this rapid growth and envision, I hope that we can be proactive as well. And It's also one of the pieces that we listed, and I didn't mention this last time, that it's affordable. It is an affordable piece as is. It's a little over $1.6 million, and that's comparable to other properties in that area. So I would say that because of the price, I think it is something that we know land is not going to go down in value in this area. It is only going to become more limited and therefore more valuable. So when we have land that is available, I think it is important that we take an opportunity to look at it as that part of our long-range vision for our students here and what the needs are where our students are located. I do think parents are concerned about the length of time that their children ride the buses. And when we have schools that are built in the proximity to where the children are located and where they actually live, then you not only improve the safety of having to ride buses for long periods of time, but we also are going to reduce transportation costs. And this as well makes zoning issues a little easier as well, because actually you're not really moving students all over the place. You're actually keeping the same group of students who will be attending school together in approximately the same area. But even better, they're going to be closer to their neighborhoods without having to transport them in a further distance away. So less travel time for students and less travel time for parents. So I see this nothing as but a win-win situation for us. And I know that there are pros and cons to every aspect of the property that we have looked at. So even if we do not decide to build at that particular time, if something else comes up in between, at least we have a piece of property that we can say that we can put it in an area where we can say that we have a possibility of building on it. So that's what I am proposing, is that we accept this as a motion to purchase this land, or look into the purchase of this land as a contract, as earnest money, and then I don't know what else I have to do to make that a formal motion here. Is that it? Okay. I made it.
All right. Motion on the floor, Ms. Armstead. I guess you need to identify the parcel.
Okay, the West Division Street area, and let me see. Mr. Porter, can you tell me about that?
I don't have the information, Ms. Armstead. Mickey, you got the packet? I don't have it.
We all know what it is.
But for the record, it needs to be this.
Okay, hang on, I have something. I have that one. Okay, I have it. Okay, it's West Division, 52.3 acres, as is, $1.637.5 million is what it's listed as for high school project C. Okay. So the high school site RFP C is what is listed here. Contingent upon funding by the county commission, is that part of this as well? Successful examination report from the design team that property meets all necessary requirements for a school. And thirdly, that successful negotiation of the contract by the executive committee.
And that was the language that went out in the original RFP.
Okay.
So it's a parcel of land that lays between West Division Street, is that correct?
Yes.
And Highway 7.
Right.
It's in Devonshire? I'm leaving that?
Yes.
Am I remembering that right?
That's correct.
Okay. Got a motion on the floor by Ms. Armstead. Do I hear a second?
I want to make a second on this because I want to ask some questions on this before and the second is not a declaration of where I necessarily going to vote, but I've got 2 or 3 questions.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor and a second. Now it's time for discussion. All discussion. Yes, sir.
Because it wasn't on our agenda to be voted on or discussed this week. And, I would like for it to be in, so I could ask these questions. But my first question is on this process on all these properties. what was the reason we didn't do a development cost? And I know this particular property has, somebody's written down a number on this paper, and I don't know if that comes from the owner of the property or not the owner of the property. But why didn't we do a development cost on each of these properties like we did the RFPs we did at Watertown?
We were waiting at Watertown, you all selected 3 or 4 sites for us to do that on these other properties. You approved the recommendation for a property, and then the design team goes out and does their due diligence to report back to you that they are okay.
I thought we had that on every piece of property, Marty. I think I can almost quote you what each of those different development costs were on each of those.
Well, we have the development costs listed on those papers that we
That had only one of them, it had, it went from like 1.6 to 3.6, like $2 million, and more development costs than it was the original. I believe I'm correct on that. I'm talking about.
For that particular one?
We didn't do that on these properties, and so I'm asking. And I'm looking at
That's a very important part of that conversation.
Right. It does have developed as 3.735, but according to what we talked about previously, and that was from the developer's perspective, I think that if we were using our site team to work that information for us, we could negotiate that is negotiable. Is that a correct understanding?
That's not how I didn't know who put that number there. Why that number went from that figure to that figure on that piece of property, but then we had a higher piece of property. The other 2 sites were higher pieces of property, and
No development.
but no development cost.
Well, the elementary school on the Central Pike was $3,042,000.
But that's the cost, not the development cost. There was only
That
one
was-
figure.
That was only one figure there, right?
Right.
So that doesn't include development.
I'm not questioning that.
Right.
I'm talking about.
It's not understanding.
I'm talking about each, and then you've got one that's 2.5 or 6 million there, piece of property. And there's no development cost for that on the third side.
Right. Which is more, which is 2.5 million.
I realize it's higher than what they say, what the price they say they'll take for the raw land, but we didn't do that this time on these RFPs, and anybody want to tell me why we didn't?
I don't know that answer.
It should be done, so we don't make a bad decision.
Well, we purchased 3 pieces of property so far
I know
using
that,
the
and we
same
probably made a
process.
mistake.
Yes.
And earnest money has been paid.
I'm just saying that we probably, but we're down to this. We've already done the other business, and I'm saying we're down to this on this.
Well, there's other property available. I don't know why they don't want to respond to the RFP process.
Well, we
I looked at-
opened this.
I looked at 2 pieces of property today over on the 10970 area. They're both suitable building spots. They're for sale. And for some reason, they don't like our RFP process. Should that mean that we don't pursue those pieces of property if that's the right place for us to build a school?
Well, we voted 5-0 to do the RFP process.
I know that, but, you know, we can vote to pursue property in another way too if the RFP process is not working for us.
It seems to have worked previously.
I agree with that. I'm not having a problem with that one. And I voted for 1 of the 5 votes for to do that, but we did the development cost on that too. We did had a study done on each of the pieces of property on our previous RFP thing at Watertown, and we did a development cost on each site on the property. I can almost tell you what they were per site because, you know,
I thought you were talking about this area.
and I was gonna ask that question, but didn't know it was coming to bring this motion tonight. And so that was my
What?
Well, I
what
would
date?
assume that all the other costs that are listed are not developed as well, and this one just gave us two different costs as to show us more specifically what it would cost to, approximately to develop versus the not, as the others did not.
But it takes a lot more to move certain property, certain materials than it does others, and where the, you know, if sewer is here compared to sewer is there, all those kind of things. I don't like the idea, and I haven't said a word tonight, and I usually don't say too many things on, you know, but I think this is important. I think it's important we get it right. I'm not in the idea whatsoever of being in the real estate business. I don't want to speculate that, well, if we don't like this, then we can always sell. I don't think that's our role in the county. I don't think that's what we need. I don't think that's what we need. You see, there's issues like here on this property that I seconded, that, you know, when you get to figuring in certain things with it, and when I looked at the site, I saw the railroad tracks, and I saw the dirt, the rocks, and I saw this, that, and the other, and all those things are going to have a big factor. And, you know, but I would, you know, in fairness to the people who made a proposal on, you know, and I can't accept this, is that right? It's going to take 2.1 million, I think, more to develop this site, and that makes it 3.6. Well, what does it cost to develop those other two pieces of property to get them prepared to do what y'all were telling us to do? And maybe Dr. Wright, maybe you can answer this question for me. And I would have asked all these questions ahead of time had I known this was going to hit the floor tonight. And I respect the process that I want to pick from. We voted for this process, and it's pick from what is offered, if at all possible. That's what I went into. Is this the most feasible property for where the student, we're trying to alleviate an overcrowding situation in Mount Juliet High School? That's the issue. That's what we all want, all five of us. We want to fix it. Now, is this site compared to the other two sites, is that going to, is that the best fix available out of the property we have offered?
And that question is directed at me.
Well, it can be. That can be a start, and then that can also be with the people who put the charts in. Of course, the people who, you know, represent these zones, they have, you know, or any of you, you know,
And Mr. Robinson, what I would tell you is that based on the information that was given to us, based on looking at the density of the population in those areas, a school needs to be located, a high school needs to be located somewhere in that proximity. And that has been the only piece of property that's been presented to us. And when you look at the growth, when you look at, talk about density, that is not slowing down. That is very well populated. I think that last heat map that was presented to us, again, there was no mistake what we were looking at. Now, can you move elsewhere? Absolutely, but you're going to talk about a rezoning and a moving of students in other areas to populate a school if you want to go elsewhere. I've been in districts that have done that, but you're going to be moving students. But right there, that's where your concentration is. And so if there's property available in that area, I'm not saying that, in that area, that's where we need to build. That's my opinion.
This, Dr. Wright, this is the most massive movement of students that we could possibly do. If we were to build a high school there, you're talking about moving 2,500 students from their current location, which is a substantial portion of our total high school population in this county. Because you're going to move 1,500 from Mount Juliet High School to the new school. Then you're going to turn around and move 2, 3, 4, 500 from Lebanon High School to go into the old Mount Juliet High School. Then you're gonna move 500 from Wilson Central to go into the old Mount Juliet High School. So you're gonna move 2,500 students if you build the school on the Davidson County line. And if we're gonna make that kind of decision tonight, then we need to have a meeting with the Mount Juliet High School parents and see if they're willing to support that as far as the rezoning is concerned. I think it's a total mistake to build on that piece of property because of the massive number of students that's going to be relocated.
Well, we're going to have zoning issues regardless of where we build.
But
Do
we
you
have to
not
be smart
agree with
about that, Ms. Armstead.
I understand that.
We can't just throw caution to the wind with our students.
Mr. we already have students that we are moving from the northern part of the boundary, as far as when you look at the students that we are busing to Wilson Central right now.
But they're going to the same school they've been going to ever since they started to that school too.
Well, the point I was making though, as far as that when you would draw new lines for a new high school, you're going to eliminate the number of students that are moving from that northern boundary, coming down that corridor down to Wilson Central right now. That's the reality of what we're dealing with right now. When you look at the Mount Juliet, the current Mount Juliet High School, we're right at 2,100. Within a short period of time, we're going to be hitting 2,500. You're talking about students in that quarter that we could take from that are going to Wilson Central. We're talking about bleeding off those that are on that northwestern portion into a new high school. So I'm not sure when you're saying 2,500, it's almost like you're talking about sort of what I call a round robin. I'm talking about proximity. I'm talking about that northern quarter that's going to Wilson Central right now, coming from that northwestern portion that are now coming into Mount Juliet and a backward approach going into a new school.
And I can tell you that as a parent, if you think about wanting your child to pass the closest school to you, that makes no sense. You're moving them from a far distance to get to Wilson Central High School when they could just take a little shorter route and go to the current Mount Juliet High School instead of from all the way to 109 Gallatin, near Gallatin, and to get back into Mount Juliet. Plus the ones that are over on the Davidson County line north of I-40, who are also moving far distance from Mount Juliet, who could be going to Mount Juliet High School. Instead, they're having to get on the interstate and move toward Wilson Central High School and go through a lot of other density of traffic as well, and other more safety issues involved there. So I don't see that as, I see that location as being much more positive than what you're trying to see it as in terms of moving the students around there. I see it, from a parent standpoint, I would want my student to go to the closest school around.
I guess my question here is, and I tend to agree with Bill as to why that we hadn't done a study to see what the cost would be for the infrastructure on this particular property, and or any particular property we've got. But also, Don, we're going with the RFP process, and you said that you know of 2 or 3 parcels that you know about, but the people don't want to deal with the RFP process. If the RFP process is what we voted to do, then if they want to sell their piece of property, they need to be willing to do that.
Okay.
So we either need to change our process and go back to negotiating with individual landowners, or we need to continue to do the RFP where they'll have a problem. They want to sell a piece of property, they need to go with do the paperwork and get it done.
Mr. Chairman, I think we have to be smart enough to do whatever's best for the school system and the county taxpayers.
You know, whatever we got to do. But if it's worked in the past on other sites, I mean, I can't understand why it's not working on this. And I know there's a lot of things that people don't like about this particular piece of property. But I did find out that, and I know Wayne has brought up the issue about it, connected to what is it, Devonshire? Devonshire. But I found out that on the plans down there that they have is for that to be a connecting road anyway, to go from West Division back over to have Highway 70. That's already on the drawing board for that to be a road to come through there. So,
But a road and a high school is two different things, Larry.
but if you,
Now, all of a sudden, you've got a bunch of high schoolers going through there. It's simply a safety issue of running that many kids through two different
I
subdivisions.
guess then if we could, if we wanted to build a site, or use a build a school on that site, then we could just come in off of West Division Street and not have an access to the back. And
That's
we
fine.
can't- and we
But
could-
then it's gonna cost you
we
another $1 million, according to
we
Mr. Porter.
Is that what you said, Robert?
That was if we had two railroad
If we had
crossings.
two railroad
I
crossings?
said if they would let you build them, I'm not 100% sure you can get two crossings. I think you would be apt to get one, and I think that causes a safety issue, just having one way in, one way out. We talked about that, but the dollars that we talked about, if you had $500,000 for a crossing and had two of them, there's your $1 million. I don't know that you get two approved. And Mr. Robinson is correct. At the end of Devonshire today, there's a big blue sign that says temporary dead-end street, which is the city's way of telling people that someday that road is planned to be extended, and that is their, at some point, that all that undeveloped property there south of Hickory Hills will be developed in some way, and that road will go down Tyler Division. That's my fear of having a single entrance into the high school off Division, that's that we're gonna turn right around at some point. Somebody will build that road. And Wayne, the very thing we're concerned about will happen is you have all that traffic comes down the road without adequate improvements to handle. And I think that's why you think ahead and do those things.
Well, there's a neighborhood. There's two neighborhoods you have to come in through. But would I want to live in that neighborhood if I had 2,500 high schools driving through there?
Well, I would only say, maybe there are people there today that wouldn't, but I bet there's a lot of people that would move there in the future because that high school's there. They're doing the same thing at Stone Hollow, they're doing the same thing at Stone Hall, and all the street coming.
Stone Hollow's not, you're not going to get to the high school driving through Stone Hollow.
Traffic coming
Robert.
from Lebanon Road down to Mount Judah High School, down Clemens Road, people are moving in there every day.
Apple, orange.
I respectfully disagree.
Do you have to go through, to get to Mount Judah High School, you have to drive through Stone Hollow?
You have to go by
You
several.
Listen
have
to Mr.
drive
Porter.
it. No, you do not.
You do not.
That question is the answer, no, you do not.
Thank you. If you build through Hickory Hollow and go to that, would you drive through Hickory Hills?
I'm sorry.
If you have that road through there to where this new high school is going to be built, would you drive through Hickory Hills?
There is a percentage of people that will.
Thank you. That's an apple and orange then, Robert.
And I'm not arguing that point.
You just said you agree, disagree.
I disagreed with what you asked me. You asked me, did anybody was gonna drive through Stone Hollow? I said, no. Are people
To get
gonna
to the high
drive
school.
down Clemens Road to get to the high school from Lebanon Road? They do it every day. And there's a significant amount of traffic that runs that road. People live on it. There are a lot of houses that have driveways on that road.
You mentioned Stone Hollow in particular.
And Stone Hall, yeah, the new one to the south, there's two. And there's Tuscan Gardens on the west side of that new road. People live moving in there too. Wayne, I'm with you. There's got to be some improvements made. But I've also done a preliminary look at where the traffic's coming from. Where we talked before, we were talking about all the people that lived all the way out to the end of Sonneville Ferry coming down through Hickory Hills. I don't believe that that's the traffic pattern that's there today, nor do I think that that's how it's.
How are they going to get there?
Those kids,
It will
when
be
you get
stationed?
down
Oh, that's better.
when you get down to Harbor Island, from there north and east, those people go down Green Hill Road and Nonover Road to Lebanon Road. Those people will take South Green Hill Road. That's the easiest way to get to Division Street and to the high school site. There's about a third from Harbor Island to the west and to the south that will come somehow back to Lebanon Road, and the closest way will go through Hickory Hills, Devonshire. There is a percentage of traffic that would come down that road. Are there engineering things you can do to fix that road, improve that road? Absolutely are.
Who's going to bear those costs?
Who's doing the improvements to the project? I mean, it's a project partnership-driven improvement, I would say.
Well, then you got to add it to the cost
There
of the
are
land.
partnerships that'll have to be done to make some improvements. Now, and I'll answer, if you don't mind, Mr. Robinson asked about the 3 sites, I'll answer that. The 3 sites were given to us to take a look at when they came in. One was Central Pike, which had a 70-acre site that the board bought 20 acres for an elementary school site because it was out of the zone of influence, circle of influence there. The other site was on Bender's Ferry, which was a large enough site, but I am assuming that it was deemed too close to the existing Manchio High School, and therefore on the edge of that circle of influence. So in essence, we only have one site to look at. Have we been asked to do a full study? No, because we only have one site, and y'all haven't decided whether you want us to look at it yet. We've been put off, so I'm assuming that's why we haven't looked at that yet, Bill.
Mr. Chairman, I give you a call for a question or request a 5-minute recess.
5-minute recess.
Got 2 quick questions.
5-minute recess. Mr. Robinson?
Somebody else have a poll for me?
Well,
I'll ask Rob, since we're doing this thing today. Were the railroad crossings in that, did y'all do the figure on the 2.1 added on to that?
The developer asked me what the cost of a road and the utilities to that site would cost. That's where that number came from. It's not an evaluation like we have done in the past where we come up a per acre like we have done.
Okay.
But at the time, there wasn't a reason nobody'd asked us to do that.
So site prep would be on top of that.
Yes, in Watertown, for instance, we had, gosh, what, 5 sites, 8 sites, whatever it was, and we were more concerned with trying to come up with a development cost per acre to try to compare apples and apples. In this case, we didn't have that. We only got one site. We haven't done that to that extent yet. If it's going to be looked at any further now, it's time to do it, for sure.
So is that something we need?
say that again now?
I'm saying if it's going beyond tonight's meeting, it's for sure time to do those things. You know, y'all just are petitioning things to be done on the other sites, surveys, geotechnical, environmental. You know, in this case, I think a traffic study would be time to be looked at. I mean, those are the kind of things you would want to help make a decision, sure.
I'm just asking for the number, the way you developed it when we bought the Watertown.
And I think we could come up with that.
Were the railroad tracks considered into that number?
Yes, sir.
2 or 1?
One across. The road, Devonshire being extended all the way down across the railroad tracks, traffic light, railroad crossing, and then in our assumptions, we assume the school would front and come off of the new road.
You know, there was also a discussion during this discussion about going at it differently than the RFP process. If we do that, in all fairness, those people who paid for that to be done in this process, we've done them a disservice. You know, my thinking is, I don't know what this is going to cost, but at the same time, we voted to do the RFP process, and these people responded, and I don't know how, you know, if there is somebody, and we voted to this process, and they didn't join this process, that means they didn't want in. And I like this process because it's transparent. I mean, at least I want it to be. And I want to do you know, I want to fix this growth issue we have in the western end. You know, and nobody sent me out down there to pick out the perfect site. It was they were going to submit. You know, we want people to submit this property, and we're going to pick it. So that's where we are. But I have a hard time voting for this and not know what this development cost and this kind of thing is, because there's a difference. It's a difference. I mean, there was a major difference when you looked at that in Washington. Big difference. And what might look like the front end, the cheapest cost, but when you added in the numbers, taking a sewer out here 2 miles, you know, and all those kind of things, doing railroads, doing all those kind of things, all of a sudden this piece of property that looked the cheapest per acre, all of a sudden was wham. And so,
Rob?
Bill, going back to your question again, I just was building out of this chat. The only thing I think we haven't looked at in any detail, we can go back and look at all these numbers, but the only thing we didn't look at in any detail was the grading. One of the evaluations of the sites in Watertown, of all the sites, we went in and looked at what extraordinarily unique grading costs were going to be on any site. So the grading, the utilities, the road infrastructure, those were the pieces we put together and came up with the cost of the land in a unit price, sort of a per acre basis, and that's how we used that comparison. So the only thing we haven't really looked at on this one is are there any extraordinary grading costs associated with this site? I'm not comparing it to any other site, but if I had one, I would compare that number with the utility and road cost and come up with a per acre cost. That's kind of the way we had been doing it.
well, there were 3 pieces of property in this group. There were 3 pieces of property in this group, you know, and of course, what, you know, in that. And I don't remember what our cost was on that deal. All I can tell you about that process is, and this is my last word, Wayne, before he throws something at me, folks, we bought land, we built a school, and I didn't get a phone call. We were transparent with this process. And that's what and I know it's not going to be that clean, and it'll never happen again. I mean, and I understand that. But they hadn't called complain about it today either, and that's been a year and a half later. And I just want, and I want to submit it. I want the public to know if we're buying this property, and to me, and this is the best choices we've got, but we've also got 4 years. The timeline that I've seen says 4.5 years before the money will be available. I'm not here for holding up your process. There are 4 votes here to buy a piece of property tonight besides Bill Robbins. But I'm just trying to, I'm just saying that I don't know how you say it, Mr. Chairman. Is it time to get? I know it's time to hush, but is it time to get in, get out? We go forward, we just forget it and don't fix nothing and go on and have school the rest of the school year. You know what I'm trying to say. So that's where I'm at. I'm through.
Mr. McNeil?
I will not apologize for being passionate on what I believe. And I firmly believe that that property is wrong to build a high school on. Simply from a safety standpoint of running that many cars through either Hickory and or Willoughby. I ain't gonna apologize for that. I am passionate about that. But after that, and I'm not gonna change my mind about that. So I will hush, and we can do what we want, the board can do what they want to do.
I guess the thing that's got me sort of tangled up right now is hearing the fact that we're gonna be having to move all these students. I thought Bill and Jason and Larry, from all the studies that you all had done, that's where the school needs to be built. It's somewhere I'm not saying on that particular piece of property, but somewhere in that section of the county. Now, is that not right? I mean,
Those maps.
we've looked at those maps until you about wore the luster off of them.
Yes, sir, I understand.
But just from what's been said here tonight, and Don's my friend, but I totally disagree with Don. The 109, 70 area is not where we need a high school at right now. We may need one there in 10 years, but we don't need one there right now, according to what they're telling us. Now, do we,
Depends on how you slice it out.
do we believe what they tell us, or do we not? I mean, these folks are making good money. We're paying them good money to advise us on what we need to do, and then if we don't take the advice that they give us, then we haven't spent our money wisely.
Well, I hope you believe us.
Well, I want to.
Okay, yes, sir.
But I mean, when I hear that we're gonna be moving 2,500 kids, I mean, I don't know what to think.
How can you not believe that, though? If you build a new school, wherever you build it at, and let's say for God forbid we build it there in Devonshire, where you gonna bring those kids from?
Evidently, you're gonna bring them from right there in that section that
From Mount
surrounding that school.
You're gonna bring them from Mount Juliet, Lakeview, Mount Juliet, so you gotta bring at least 1,500 there.
I mean, how many?
Okay, let's say 1,500, let's pick a number.
What do
All
we
right,
know?
what are we gonna put back in Mount Juliet? What's gonna fill that Mount Juliet up?
It's gonna be a combination of Wilson Central and probably some from Lebanon High School.
So 500 from each one of those? That's 2,500.
I don't know that it has to be 500. I mean, you know, Dr. Wright just said we're gonna be looking at 2,500 there next year. Listen.
Wherever we go, we're gonna be moving students.
Just listen to me here a minute. Hear me out. We have, as long as I've been on the board, this tenure, back before, I've always been told that we never needed to have a school with more than 2,000 kids. That it was harder to manage, and that was the magic number, was right around 2,000 kids. If you build a high school that has more than 2,000 kids in it, it's not manageable. Now, was that either fact or is that wrong? Because if we don't do something down there in the west end of the county, then we're gonna be looking at Mount Juliet High School here within another year or 2 years, probably bumping up there somewhere or another between 2,700 kids. Now, would that make them maybe a superpower in athletics? It probably would. Bring in that many more kids, you know, they probably, but is it the right thing to do? If what we've been told all these years, that over 2,000 is not a manageable number, it's not. But if all the concentration of the growth, and I'm not that, y'all can talk about all these subdivisions down there, I don't know anything about it, but from what I'm seeing and what I'm visualizing, the majority of the growth in Mount Juliet is west of Mount Juliet Road, north. And south, it's west.
It's west and south.
That's what I say. It's but of Mount Juliet Road. I'm really going down Highway 70. Once I get to Mount Juliet Road, I'm going into the growth zone, right? If I turn left, I'm going in toward Mount Juliet, I'm going into the growth zone. If I continue to go west on Highway 70, I'm going into the growth zone. Is that what we're telling me? Okay. So why would we want to build a school somewhere back up this way and have to bring those kids all the way to 109 or something?
You know, you're gonna have.
Now, the ideal situation, and we all know what the ideal situation would be, is to have a school somewhere or another down here in Mount Juliet on Highway 70, down there around Nina's Nursery or Ligon Farm or somewhere or another like that. But that ain't gonna happen, folks, because they're not gonna settle. And until we find a spot down there that everybody can be in agreement with, or the majority of us can be in agreement with, we're between a rock and a hard place, because Mount Juliet High School is going to continue to grow. And what are we going to do down there? Are we going to build onto it and make it a 3,000 high school kids? Are we going to put portables out there? Or what are we going to do?
But let me ask you a question, Mr. Chairman. If we were to have a piece of property that we owned today, it's going to be 5 years before we can build a school. According to our plan, we submitted to the county commission. 5 years. So we're gonna sit on a piece of property for 4 or 4.5 years before we ever gain advantage of it. So why do we want to rush on this questionable piece of property? I'll throw the word out there. And then sit on it for 3 or 4 years before we ever put the first blade on it. When there are options, and there's going to be other options.
We don't need
that come
to be
on.
in the real estate business.
I don't want to be in the real estate
We
business
don't need to
either.
be in the
And
I'm all for you, Linda, but we don't need to be.
this is not for me.
I know it's not for you, but we don't need to be in the real estate business. But our big question and our big challenge as a Board of Education in Wilson County is to find a suitable site that's gonna service the people west of Highway 109 to the Davidson County line. That's our challenge. And I don't know how we're gonna get that done, but somehow or another, we've gotta get off center here and get that done. I'm not particularly fond of this particular area down here because we don't know what it's gonna cost to develop. That's my biggest concern tonight, plus the fact that I've been told we're gonna have to move 2,500 kids. Now that's a real problem with me, if we're gonna have to start moving those kind of things. And I know Dr. Wright, I know zoning, it comes up every time we have to build a new school. But the least amount of heartburn that can bring to most people is what we need to know. Somebody's not gonna be happy regardless of what you do. It doesn't matter. We haven't done a thing here tonight since we've been in here since 6 o'clock that everybody in this community is happy about. Somebody's mad about something. But this right here is the problem, y'all. If we keep talking about it, we keep kicking it around, and we need to do something.
Well, let me clarify again. This is not for me.
I shouldn't have said it. I shouldn't have said that. It's not for Wayne, and it's not for Don, it's not for Larry, it's not for Bill. It's for what's right, it's what we need to do. But I don't know, we asked for an RFP, and we didn't get a thing. We didn't get a bite. It's not like that old country song, don't feel well, I got a nibble. We didn't even get a nibble, So I don't know what we're gonna do.
Well,
We either gotta change our process and go away from RFP and go out here and try to find somebody or do something else, but we're not getting anywhere, folks, I'm telling you.
Isn't there a disclaimer in the RFP that says we don't have to accept anything?
Process it.
And that's the very reason. If you don't get anything or you don't get acceptable responses, then you don't have to select anything.
And that's why we went through the process again.
Right.
But these other people have paid to be a part of that process.
That's the risk you take if you're trying to sell
No,
something.
that's what we told them. We're going to, we're looking for this property and we're wanting you to submit this property and and you go out and you spend for this, that, and the other, because this is not all of a sudden write down this number and send it to, there's got to be appraisals done and those things they're not given to you. All those kind of things are done, so all of a sudden, these people that don't want to be open and transparent, now we're going to look, they're going to be our primary thing rather than those people who wanted to be a part of an open and transparent process.
Regardless of what we do, it's gonna be open and transparent.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
regardless. Yeah, I understand, but I'm talking about like development costs and all that kind of thing. Wayne. But the best thing about it, there's 5 people here that want to build the school and to fix the overcrowding problem and down in that area. I mean, there's nobody here wanting to slow down that process. I don't think. I can only speak for me, and I feel like surely that y'all,
I will say another thing about the overcrowding and the school system is that is what I have been hearing, is that if we don't do something now, all the good things that are going on in Mount Juliet High School right now are going to be compromised because we've got an overload of kids in the classroom and an overload of children in the classroom per student diminishes the effectiveness of your teaching ability. we were talking about athletics versus the academics. Okay, we've got a majority of people that are going to be involved in needing the academics. We have the fewer number of students who are going to benefit from the athletics. So I still want us to keep our hearts and minds on what is going to benefit the most students academically, as well as, I'm all about athletics, I've always been. So,
It wasn't the coach that said that, Terry. Don't look, don't turn left here on
no,
that, this way.
I've just kind of got a vested interest in that.
But,
So, and, you know, and,
Ms. Arbison, I'd like to ask you at this time if you would withdraw your motion until we can get a feasibility study done to see what the development cost will be for that particular piece of property, and that our central office staff can tell us exactly where these kids are going to be coming from, what area they're going to be coming from, and how many we're going to have to move. Would you consider doing that?
that will be fine. I am not into this to push anything down anybody's throat, per se. I want to act because another angle that I hear from people is that they come into our system, they come into our county and say, why are people not looking at what's going on in here? Do they not realize that we are moving and growing so quickly? And do they not have a vision to take care of this? And then we're behind. Every time we turn around, we're behind in trying to catch up with the schools. So that's a point that I want us to remember as well.
I think if you look back over the last 10 years, we've spent probably $350 million building new schools.
We've spent a whole lot of money.
And we've got another building plan right now that's $250 to $300 million. I don't think anybody can say we're taking backwater on trying to meet our needs in our education process. Is it a proactive process? No, because obviously that's something that just don't happen with taxpayer dollars. You don't project, I'm going to need a school here in 10 years, and you'll build it. You build a school after you need it. So I don't think anybody can look at Wilson County and say that we have, first of all, met the needs of the last 10 years and don't have a plan to meet the needs for the next 5 to 10 years. I don't think anybody can say that, Ms. Armstrong.
I don't think, that is not exactly what I was intending to say, that we're now being proactive, because I think just this year with the purchase and just the last 2 or 3 meetings when we've done these purchases and we've got the earnest money down, I think it's important to note that that is correct, and I won't disagree with you on that. But what I do still want to emphasize is that when you are in a school system and you're walking down the hallways for several years sideways, and that's what happened when we were in the former Mount Juliet High School for many, many years. There was safety issues in the hallway. There were issues with overcrowding in the classrooms, and that is going to create problems academically and effectively in the teacher ability to meet the needs of the students. And that happened, so that's about 5 years. You've got about 5 years before you realize that, hey, we're on top of each other, we're running, you know, down the hallways crisscross. So you've got a 5-year period there of where we're just making do. So do we just want to make do for the 5 years and overcrowd the classrooms? You have, I remember writing 36 names of students down in my little book there, per class, when we were so overcrowded for many, many years. So that's where it is where I'm hearing from the parents, is that we've got the numbers in the classrooms are growing per teacher. And we all understand how that is going to affect what you do in the classroom. How well you do.
The growth is not just at Mount Juliet, we're also saying, I mean, Lebanon High School's more or less enrolled new students at a faster rate right now than Mount Juliet High School. So, I mean, we're seeing growth at the 3 of the 4 big high schools, and minimal growth as far as Watertown's seeing, you know, the growth too, but not to the extreme that we're seeing at the 3 other high schools.
So I'm okay with the feasibility study, and but I do want to point out that the property, as Mr. Porter has explained to us, and Larry, as you just mentioned, that the Ligon Farm, that perfect farmland that's there, they are not going to sell. And there are people who are not going to sell for whatever their personal reasons may be. And when you have a piece of property available, and we're not acting on it, and I want us to know the feasibility and the practicality of the cost and what other, I think from what I remember, the sewer and the utilities were there already.
Close by.
They were close by. So that was not as big an issue for the development of that piece of property as maybe some other pieces of property as well. So it would be more a matter of traffic and grading, land movement, which is expensive. That's part of it. So I'm okay with that. Feasibility study?
Dr. Wright, can you get those, what you basically did?
So I will withdraw that motion in order to create a feasibility study, Bill.
All right, okay.
For the December 21st, is that too close?
Let's give them time to do the work.
I'm asking, is that too?
I would agree with Larry.
That's what?
I would agree with Mr. Thomas.
Okay,
Yes.
give it till January?
That might be a little quicker.
Okay. And the property might not still be available. I mean, you know, I don't know how the property owners want to deal with that. January 4th meeting.
But the numbers on population too, did you have a question on
Sir?
population number?
Yes, sir, Dr. Wright. Her staff's gonna be working on
Yeah,
that.
I've got it down.
You say January 4th?
It's board meeting's Monday, January the 4th.
That's at a special meeting.
21st is special.
21st is special meeting.
Thing, but 6th is it 4th or 6th or 5th?
Fourth.
Rob, on a side note, how close are we, the location or the property on Stewart's Ferry, how close are we to the sewer and water there?
4.5 tenths from the Dollar General store to the property.
There's a force main with gravity line that serves the Dollar General, and I honestly don't have a distance. Seemed like it was
4.5 tenths. I measured.
how much?
4.5 tenths, almost half a mile.
About
Half a mile.
1,200 feet. Sounds like.
No, about 24, 25.
How much you said?
24,
4
25.
tenths a mile?
4.5
sorry.
tenths.
2,000.
What was your answer, sir?
Over
About
2,000.
2,000 feet. But it's the
I
plan
was told it was
is,
only like 400 originally, no?
it's the distance between the site and the Dollar General.
Yeah. And I measured with my truck. It's 4.5 tenths.
And it's gonna have to be pumped. It's a force main. It's probably gonna be trenched.
Two bids come before the board. Say, Wayne, do you have something else to say?
Not for not for him, I do have a couple other things.
We didn't vote on to do the site
Oh, okay. I thought-
Feasibility.
feasibility study.
Motion by Ms. Armstead, that we do a feasibility study, and Dr. Wright and her staff come up with the zoning numbers, see what it looks like, and that your motion. Second by Mr. Robinson. Any further discussion?
Is that just for that property there?
Just for that property there. Did you have some other that you
Not
wanted
at this
to
time.
look at?
Now, I didn't know if we're talking about property at Stewart's Ferry and Mountain View Road or what?
We already got a contract on those.
Pardon?
We already have a contract.
And Mountain View Road and Stewart's Ferry property, don't
On Stewart's Ferry, we do.
I didn't say Stewart's Ferry, I said Mountain View Road.
Oh, no, there's, I don't think we could get sealed on that property.
Why not?
Good question.
You talking about the other two sites on C, on the high school,
Yes.
selection of Plain Wayne?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, that's where we've done it. I don't,
I mean, that may be more costly, it's cost of ownership of what's gonna get us, not just the cost of the property, so I don't know what it would cost on that particular property or not.
All,
Ownership.
all in favor of the feasibility study and the looking at the zone, vote aye?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
No.
So it passed 3-2. Any new business to come before the board this time?
I've got a couple of new things, I don't know if you want to do it under old, new, it doesn't really matter.
Okay.
First thing I want to bring up is some issues that we have at West Wilson Middle School. Outside, there is some painting, fascia board that's rotting. It's only going to get worse. We need to take a hard look at fixing that, whatever that may take.
Is that on the front or the back?
Yes.
We just reworked.
We did rework
about 5 years ago.
Well, it didn't work good.
The manufacturer's looking at the paint that's peeling off, and they've got it in their lab right now studying it, and they'll come back and fix that once their lab gives them the right combination to keep it from doing that.
Yeah, because
So that is being looked at.
What about the fascia board?
That would have to be replaced. We'll replace that with maintenance. We can do that.
Well, I keep hearing we can't do it.
I've not heard that. I'm not
Came
seen
from
a work
you?
order on it.
Came from you?
I did not. It did not.
All right. Not directly to me, but it came from you, just another party.
Did not.
Okay.
And Wayne, you and I had the conversation just an hour ago as far
And
as.
you told me to bring it up.
Yeah, I know, I just, gosh, just a minute. The conversation was that Wendell and I had 2 weeks ago had walked around the buildings right after we'd had that 4 days of continuous rain, and where that was the notice that the paint was coming up and where the water was shooting back behind that board. So, yeah, it's being looked at.
Somebody needs to answer. We spent $50,000 doing that, didn't we? Wayne, since you're not there,
I think it was 55 or 60.
something like that.
Well, it's in dire need now.
And we did some window work.
That's not when we rebuilt the part of the school though, was it? Was it
No.
before that?
No. What was it we did?
You put the tint windows
Yes.
to help the sun.
How long ago was the paint and all that done?
About 5 years ago.
5 years ago?
Well,
The manufacturer's aware of it, and they've got it in their lab testing it.
well, we need to go ahead with a fascia board and start some of that anyway, because it's rotting pretty bad and we need to do something.
What else you got?
Teacher pay. I know we're talking a lot about it tonight, on other avenues. We need to come up with a plan, some fashion, for our 5 to 15 year teacher, where they're making less in some cases, or right at somebody that's just starting. We need a plan. I mean, we'll need to talk about it. We need some type of direct plan to fix that. Now, how that is, who wants to committee that, I don't know.
And that is a conversation that is taking place, and yes, we have that little group that, one of those unintended consequences when looking at the pay and how it was directed, that you're correct, Mr. McNeese, and that is something that we are very much aware of and looking to address that.
And you mentioned X number of teachers, Ms. Donna?
Excuse me?
You mentioned some teachers that did fall through a crack?
Yeah, there was, in fact, that was something that I guess within the last 2 weeks looked at. It was, I believe it was 42 teachers that, again, when you looked at, as far as that catch up, as far as that when we bumped the beginning pay rate, and even with the advanced degree, that there were 42 teachers that were identified that we are correcting. The next thing that we need to correct those, go back and look at those teachers that are in that middle bracket. And that we've been having and continue to have conversation on how to remedy that, because it has implications as far as all the way up the pay, so.
I mean, it's not an easy fix.
It's not an easy fix, but we need to address it.
And I just want a plan that this is how we're going to address that. My other thing, if I might indulge one other couple moments here. I'm also concerned about the number of positions that we are adding to our staff here in the central office. Policy 5.105. The authorization, first line, authorization of all school system positions rests with a board, which tells me that we cannot create a position unless a board approves that position. Would that be correct?
Using that policy, and I would also refer you to the policy, and I do not have that number in front of me.
It is 5116.
Thank you. That as far as that reorganization within the central office, as long as there are no budget implications, the director has that prerogative.
But this one takes precedent over this one. Before it can be done, the board's got to approve it. And we have done that recently. Created a position.
And with that earlier conversation that you and I had, as far as, because what you did present to me was a whole list of issues.
One in particular.
I know, but I'm going back to that conversation. You had a list of grievances as far as positions here and job titles that well preceded me. And
I'm not blaming you.
I know, but let me finish.
I don't want you redhead get mad at me real quick.
No, when my face matches my hair.
Then I'm in trouble.
Well, it was saying that, with looking at that, I also went into the history as far as that position that had been created for the deputy director, also preceded me, but that was a position that had not only been approved by this board, but it also was budgeted. I went that first year and did not fill that position, and never, that would have been the deputy director of academics. Okay? I'm trying to give as far as what took place. And that was not filled that first year, because that was a position not only was I very comfortable with, but I wanted to make sure that it was a matter of getting the right person in that position.
Understand.
I also believe, with good intentions, that that would have also been a position that would have had an assistant attached to it. But that was not part of that, but that was something that I would have believed that would have been considered. So with that, with the transition of several different things that occurred, and I'm going back to that, the questions that you had for me, was making sure that we had the right people on the seat of the bus, and some positions, again, to get the assistant that Monty Wilson, who did and was named to that position. There were some shifts and positions made, and that is the position that you've called into question as far as a new position created, which was a secretarial position, administrative assistant, whatever you want to call it. It's still...
Well, secretary and administrative assistant sounds a lot different from each other.
Well, but that, when you're calling a new position, that was a position of support to Mr. Wilson. And so if that's something, as far as that, if you think that I've taken policy out of context, my apologies.
I'm just reading what the policy says.
Well, my apologies. That was something that was not done with any intent to be covert or anything that as far as to mislead the board. But I'm trying to make this central office as efficient as I possibly can. And there were no budget implications or nothing that I need to come back before this board to ask to support that financially or otherwise.
Well, I don't, maybe, to me, you're talking about two different things. First, we've got to agree that we need that position. The board has got to decide that, according to that policy. And we don't have that opportunity. The other thing that I don't like is how we've done it in the past. We put a note at the bottom of a budget that we passed, and at the bottom of this thing, district-wide position. I don't know that we read all those fine lines. I mean, we created a position simply by approving a budget. I don't think that's the way to do it either. And you and I have talked about this.
And again, that was brought up in July, that I went through that budget. I also noted the footnotes that were at the bottom of that. My apologies if that was something that, slipped by you. That was never the intention. That's how I've presented budgets in the past. If that's something that this board does not find acceptable, I'll change that practice.
I don't find it acceptable, but that's just me.
But again, like, as I said to you earlier, Mr. McNeese, if that's something that is difficult or hard to follow, I'll change that practice.
To me, it just kind of slides it into the back door.
Oh, well, that was never my intention. I don't slide anything.
Hey, and I'm not blaming you because it's been the practice in the past.
That's always been my practice, so I'll have to take credit for that.
The last thing I've got is our salary schedule. We talked about that. We had people that we've asked to leave a job function at a high school.
Okay.
Not. To move to a different, to help out, we asked them to do it to a middle school, to a large middle school that's got as many dollars going through it as probably as much as 3 high schools, and a lot more probably than the 4th high school. But yet, when we give her a 50-cent raise, but if she was in another job, she would have got a $1.50 raise. And we asked her to do this. We need to rectify that, in my opinion. Can we do that?
Well, that's something, again, as far as that looking, the board approved as far as what we did on the pay grades and the support
Who
staff.
comes up with the pay grade? Who decides the pay grade?
Well, looking at practice as far as not only similarly situated districts, that was something that, again, when we went through a detailed, Sparks went through a detailed explanation, opportunities for questions, and it was also the opportunity to give those within a 4-year span as far as quicker ability to earn money towards their future retirement. And so the pay grades is something we had to clearly define because we had people that were grouped together that were not similarly situated and paying them the same. And so the pay grades become very clearly defined between those that as far as technical trades, clerical, and so that gave us a better definition. And that was something that was, again, presented to this board in July.
Can we make a adjustment on the one lady we're talking about?
It warrants conversation. That's something that, and we've talked about that, particularly when you look at in the position that we're talking about, so it doesn't sound like it's, it's bookkeeping. And when you look at the responsibility, particularly for middle schools and high schools, the amount of money that flows through, we've said even with the high school principals, Mr. McNeese said they don't make what they should when you look at the level of responsibility of what they're dealing with, particularly with athletics.
On the salary schedule, do all bookkeepers fall within the same category? Is it based on experience, number of years of service, or years of experience that they bring into the system? How does it work?
It's years of experience, but it's also when there's a difference between when you look at the middle school and then the difference with looking at the high school experience. And not the high school experience, but the high school because of the flow through. You're talking about more than $1 million plus going through the accounts at a high school.
Is elementary same as middle school?
No, I don't think it is because of then it goes back to the amount of money, the responsibility. Correct me if, am I wrong on that? Elementary is different from middle school.
Mount Jim Middle and West Wilson Middle have everything that high schools have except for graduation. All sports programs, everything else is in, I think we need to treat those people.
The revenue is just not quite what a high school is, but they do generate quite a bit of revenue. That's true.
Lots of revenue.
We can certainly look at it. I mean, because that, again, that's
It seemed like if we want to do it, all right, we don't have to do a budget amendment on this new position we added, right?
Well, I respectfully disagree, but I will
How
hear what you say.
did we do a budget amendment on this new position?
There wasn't any reason to do a budget amendment. There was
Exactly, there's probably not one on here either, but it was a new position. But we wanted to do it, so we had the money.
We will look at that that. I will absolutely look at that. It's my word that I will look at that. I promise you that. I can't sit there and say right now that we can do it, but I will certainly look at it. I can assure you that. I'm aware of the problem.
Help me out here now. If a bookkeeper at Mount Juliet Middle School would make more than a bookkeeper at Carroll Oakland Truck simply because of the number of dollars that they handle or the number of students that they serve.
Combination of both. It's the revenue that gets more, the money that goes through the books, plus the number of students. What?
I don't think the dollars has anything to do with it.
Well, you have to, when you look at it as far as the revenue flow that's going through the, it has a lot to do with it.
I don't remember that. I think I'll have to look at it.
Well, how come, so then,
It's always been my, you know, if it's different here, but that's been my experience everywhere I've been.
I think that was in our salary schedule.
does the principal make more because he works at Mount Juliet Middle or West Wilson Middle than they do at Carroll Oakland Truck Road?
Yes, and in fact, we just,
It's based on
that's-
student population.
Based on.
we just approved that at the, remember the numbers that we did?
budget year we approved.
Yeah.
That's
sure
what I
did.
thought. So then the salary schedule really don't mean a lot. It's according to how big a school you're in, population. But that's a conversation for another day. You through one?
Yes, and I
But
know
I'm
everybody
going
says
to
thank
look,
you.
I'm going to look at it, Mr. Denise.
Got it
Done.
Bill, you got anything? Don? Nothing? All right, we need to vote on the memorandum of understanding we did for the election commission. And he's already got his signed document, we need to vote on that.
So moved.
Need a motion that we approve a memorandum of understanding with the election commission. I hear a motion.
Motion and second.
Motion and a second. Who made it?
I did.
Motion.
Motion by McNeese, second by Mr. Robinson. All in favor, need a discussion? Being no discussion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, I got one question. And this got something to do with personnel too. Do we allow our crossing guards to go to the clinic? Who's allowed to go to the clinic?
No, this is not us.
Any person that's covered by our medical plan and bus drivers.
Anybody that's covered by a medical plan or bus driver.
So that's 30
Bus
hours.
drivers are not part of our medical plan.
Some of them are, depending on the length of if they're a 6 or more hour person.
Okay. Why don't we allow the other people that are employed to go to the clinic?
None of our part-time employees have our medical insurance, nor do they go to the clinic, with the exception of the bus drivers. And part-time is anything under 30 hours.
Would that be a strain on our clinic if we allowed those people that's on the lower end of the food chain to get to use that
We
facility?
looked at it.
Yeah, Dr. Wright sent me an email over the weekend. I told her I would work up some numbers for her, so I'm working on something for her, for that, to answer that question.
I asked her on
Because
Friday.
the bus drivers were $250,000, $300,000 is what it costs.
Just to use the clinic?
Yes, sir.
I know there's a cost involved, but I mean,
$200 bus driver.
what services do we provide at the clinic? Do they get free prescriptions and that kind of thing?
Yes, sir. They
Okay,
go
so
in
that's
the
the
clinic.
largest amount of the cost, because the nurses that are in the clinic, they're there anyway regardless of how many people they're seeing.
Yeah, the staff is still a big part of it. Prescriptions is part of it. Any labs they do in the clinic is gonna be part of it. We did budget $200,000 for the bus drivers, but it ended up being around an actual cost, actually $95,000. So that's what we got in the budget this year to handle that. Now, the number I've got to work on for Dr. Wright is, again, what that would cost for this group, but also talk to Mike Jennings from a legality standpoint on when do you stop offering part-time employees benefits? So we have to answer that question. But the one difference between crossing guards and the other part-time people is the bus drivers do get retirement, because that's been done since the mid-'80s. And so that's one reason they were allowed to go ahead to the clinic with a separate benefit. So that's a question I need to ask Mike, and I'm gonna talk.
ACA too.
Yeah, and I'm gonna talk to Mike in the morning about that and the other policy you had on 6.712. So I'll cover both of those with him in the morning.
But that was something he was already addressing because I.
And I'll try to have that information for Dr. Wright so she can bring it to you on the 21st.
Well, I would respectfully ask you to look into that and see what it would cost. And I certainly know that the county general government, their insurance is not a poster child for anybody to be going by, but I do know that they're looking at allowing some part-time people to use their clinic too, so. But like I say, they've got their own issues. We don't want to follow in their footsteps, but if we can. Dr. Wright, anything else to come up from you?
No,
We got a
I
meeting
think I
on,
dare say
we got a
that.
meeting on December 21st at 5 o'clock, and that's when we'll be discussing the, what it says on here, at 5 p.m., special call meeting, the 21st.
That's before the county commission meeting.
Yep, gotta have that.
Is that enough time for us to conduct the business we need to conduct?
Well, we're hoping,
That was agreeable.
if it's anything like the last few been, it won't be, but I guess we can conduct what we conduct in a journal.
We need to err on the side of down. Take it off. Take it one
Do
person.
what? Air on the side of down. What does that mean exactly?
Well,
Explain it,
That's
Watertown
what-
lingo to me.
I got toward forward rather than six.
That's Watertown lingo, Wade.
Motion to adjourn.
We could help him.
So moved.